Keep saying it.
Slow and that one stopped.
Dying. Gonna be sickly.
I'm saying there's already 50. There's already 50 number, but there's already. Always do.
They should find other things to legislate. Maybe someone doesn't like butter, and so they could pass some law related to butter with toast.
Hang on, always.
Yeah, because I stopped it right in time, I think. Okay, great.
Okay, here we go. Okay, welcome to the meeting of the Kansas Board of Education. Today is January 7th, 2025. We're meeting at the district office located at 9361 South 300 East in Sandy, Utah. I was maybe gonna say my own address. But anyway. This is my second home. Anyway, not really. Okay, the first item on the agenda is item A, the 2025 legislative update, and Charlie Evans, Director of External Relations, and Susan Edwards, Public Engagement Coordinator, will present this.
Thank you. Nice to be here tonight. Congratulations to our new board members. I know when all of your children and grandchildren were eagerly anticipating the Christmas Day, you guys were looking forward to the opening of the Utah legislative session. And here we are. So the legislative session begins on the day of our next meeting, the 21st. And I thought we'd start by just going over just briefly the changes in the leadership in both houses. Stuart Adams, who's been the president for the last 2 terms, will of course continue to be the president, and Kirk Cullimore, who is one of our representatives, state senators, is going to be the new majority leader, which is great. Just as a little bit of trivia, I don't know if anybody in here will remember Arnie Christensen, but he had Kirk's seat many years ago, and he was the Senate president for 2 terms. Wayne Ederhauser took that seat from Arnie. He was the Senate president for 2 terms. And Kurt's got one more step to make, but if he does end up becoming the Senate president, he'll be the 3rd person in that seat to hold that office. Mike McKell and what's Wilson's first name? Chris Wilson will round out the leadership team, the Republican leadership team in the House. And so obviously, in the Senate, obviously we'll miss Senator Vickers and Senator Milner, but it's great to have Kurt moving up higher in Republican leadership. And, you know, it does give us a little extra say and have someone a little closer to the seat of power that listens more carefully to the things we have to say. This is the minority caucus. I don't I was about to say there's not any change, but Kathleen Reeby, who is our, who also represents our district. She is the manager, the caucus manager.
That's the title.
So all of these people we're talking about here on executive appropriations, that's what makes these positions so powerful. The House leadership, there were no changes in the Republican side and minimal changes on the Democrat side. Doug Owens is new, right? And Sierra. So anyway, that is the new leadership in both houses that we'll be working with for the next 2 years. These, I think everyone here is familiar with or knows or is familiar with the people that represent Canyon School District. This is a complete list of them. Some of them have just a very small part of our district. Others, most of them though, are entirely within our district. We did have Clint Okerlund and Cal Roberts were both here tonight. And I think that's the first time we had, they haven't been sworn in yet, but that's the first time we've had legislators that are swearing in. So that was nice. All right, I'm going to turn this over to Susan, but this is our tracker, which has, we've been doing this so long and so well, it's become pretty famous outside of the school district, but we do this for you guys. So, well, let's let Susan explain the whole thing. For anybody that wants to follow the tracker, there's a QR code there.
That actually, yeah, and that actually leaks. We'll talk about this. We will email you the tracker every night. That QR code leads to the RSS feed where the public can sign up for the tracker. That is a little bit different than the one you receive. You'll see the red line. And that is the hot bills, as you all and us determine bills to be the ones that we are really actively working or are either very positive or very negative for us, and that we are really spending a lot of our efforts and time on.
Things we're actually working on.
And that is somewhat confidential. It comes to you, to the Board of Education, to the Superintendent Leon, and Cabinet, to track those bills and to know sort of where those are. The green, and it will be a very long list before we're done. This is just a snapshot. That is what the public will see, is from the green down. They will see that, all bills, and then they'll be able to see their positions. You'll see out to the side, it'll have the last action, the calendar position, and the date that it was added. We will have those on there. Out to the right is kind of a temporary column for right now. There are some bills that aren't out yet as bills, but we've been given either a preview of them or they were talked about at interim. So we've added the slideshow or the information we do have on a few of them, just so that we have those until we get actual bill language. And then the yellow is something we use constantly, but is something that you all as board members can use as well. That every night is updated, and so that you will be able to tell what is up on the docket the next day, what committee something's in, what position. So that tells us kind of what committees we have to split off to, which is extremely helpful for us now that used to most of education was in education. Now most of education is all over the place.
Well, and it's also an indication too of what's going to happen tomorrow.
Right. It tells us where things are going to be. So if you want to kind of know what bills are being heard the next day, what's come up, we keep that pretty current.
And the other thing too is the first day of bills added is bolded. So if you feel like you're on top of the list and you just want to see what's new, you can just glance down and find the bold.
Actually, we started adding it to the date added on the end.
Okay.
So
that does become more important than you realize.
Right.
Sorry, go
no,
ahead.
that's okay. Like I said, the main list goes, you guys will see this, but that QR code is where you can all sign up. And some of you already have, but share that with your friends, your constituents. If they want to track the bills we're working on, they can go there. Any questions? And that will be emailed to you every night during the legislative session, during the 45 days. Any questions or comments from our board members? I've been seeing this for years on what benefit you get or what you look for in this.
It's an enormous amount of work and I'm very, very grateful. I mean, I don't know of any other district that does it the way that you guys do it. And it's one of the reasons why Canyons up there has done a real service for the other school districts that you do. And one reason why Nancy's contribution was so significant, because she would go through these and help parse things apart. So, right.
She helps
And
with the
she-
description.
She's gonna continue to do that. That's.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
This right here is all written and has been for the last couple of years and will be for this year too, written by Nancy. And that is almost a full-time job,
It is, yeah.
just writing that stuff. And so, and she does a very good job of encapsulating what's in a bill. And so if you think you have an interest in a bill, you read that description, it'll tell you whether you need to go to the bill text or not. And that is hugely helpful. She does a great job with that.
One thing I will say is we are pretty accurate, but we are moving very, very fast up there. And they tend to release bills at all times of the day and night. And so if we miss something or you know something that you see is not right or a link's not working right, please notify us so we can get it right very quickly. I think we have pretty good accuracy, but once in a while we make a mistake or the bill leaks or mistakes up at their site, so it messes us up. So if you ever see anything that needs to be fixed, please let us know.
Yeah, a lot of people use this without realizing that Susan and I are the authors of it. And they say, well, I've got it right here on this list. And I'm like, yeah, that's my list.
Yeah, well, and also I just want to say one more thing, like, I think to give us a perspective, there are a lot of professional lobbyists up there that these two will be running into. That they're tracking what, maybe 11, 12 bills.
Yeah.
And when they ask us how many we're tracking and we say over 200, their jaws just fall to the ground. I mean, it's the fire hose cannot be overstated. And every year it seems to be more than the year before. So anyway.
107 already on the list
Oh
this
my
year.
goodness. Well, thank you for doing this. This is a huge undertaking.
Yeah, and to what you're saying, you will see bills shift and change all session, right? So you'll see bills that we can, sometimes they're always on the list if we're curious if they have anything to do with this. But Leon and the superintendents and different USBA are all reviewing bills. So as we get more information, we'll up it in priority or take it off of our radar for really working, find out if it doesn't impact us. But you'll see a lot on there that you may go, why are they doing this? And you can kind of determine on who it's important to on the description. But as the session goes, sometimes they completely replace the language of a bill and it not become something totally different. So whenever, that happens, just we'll adjust accordingly.
Once they start numbering the box cars, we'll add all of those on our list until there's language put in them. And if they're not education related, then we take them off. But anything that we try, like Susan said, we make mistakes and we make mistakes all the time. We try to put everything on the list that might affect us until we're sure that it doesn't. And if we're sure that it doesn't, then we take it off. And so you'll see as we get through the legislative session, you'll see some ambiguously named bills with numbers. Those are called box cars. And we leave those on our list until language is put in them and we're certain that it doesn't have anything to do with education. Then at that point, we'll sometimes take them off. But if we think that they may be playing games, we may just leave it on in case.
Okay, Molly had a question, and then Karen.
Oh, I was just gonna say for the new board members, this is the most amazing resource. And you absolutely, the description, you can understand exactly what the bill's about very quickly. And there's a lot of legislators that use the little public link and use these spreadsheets all the time. So that's how good it is.
Well, Nancy's descriptions are 100 times better than the ones that the draft.
Yeah.
Especially if you're in education, especially because it drills down to what's really important to us. It's a whole big bill that does a lot of things, so. Session dates. Oh, sorry.
My question was, if we wish to come up and be at the Capitol, is there a certain place that we would, okay, say there's a certain bill that we're interested in attending the meeting for. How do we find out which rooms they're in?
It'll be on this list. Go
It'll be
back
on the
to it.
list, okay.
If it's one of the bills that we're following,
Right.
it'll be on the,
And do we connect with you in any way?
please do.
I would assume so. I'm just asking.
It'll be listed right here, Karen. And then
That's right. Usually it is.
It'll
Oh,
say,
yeah.
and it'll say the location right there.
Perfect. Okay, and then because there's such limited parking this year, I understand a number of my schools have already decided they are not attending the,
We'll talk about that on the next slide. Who's
Okay.
coming when?
stay tuned to the next slide.
Yes, I will tell you a funny story, and Charlie may shut me down here in a second, but we were year 2 or 3 into this district. And the board, so the board takes positions. What we work on is what you have taken as your position. And if something comes up or something changes or new bills come out, we're back in touch with you guys, right? To say, you know, what do you want us to do on this? So, so we had something that the board wasn't working on, and we had a board member that we were sitting in committees, and we got a phone call from a couple of our legislators that says one of the board members are up here and they're talking against what you've told us, and you've never seen Charlie and I move faster across the Capitol complex when, do you remember that?
Yeah.
So, yeah, we appreciate knowing when you're there, you know.
You know, if you have any fires, you have to put
You know,
out.
obviously you don't have to tell us if you're coming, but we can make it a better experience for you. We
Exactly.
can even help you get parked.
You offered that
We can
before
talk.
and I just made.
Any recommendations about where to park? I think there's a shuttle.
I'm taking an Uber. That's,
It's going to be, it's always bad.
It's really bad.
It's going to be worse this year than it's ever been.
And then if you're not wanting to go all the way up there, is there a way, just for them to know, that you can follow what's going on?
absolutely.
they-
All committees are.
Yeah, they do a great job of broadcasting over the internet, these committees.
That was one benefit of COVID.
And you can participate online if you want to testify.
All in.
And in my experience, they actually pay more attention to the people that testify online than they do the people that come in person. And so if you're ever in a position where you want to testify or say something in committee, we both would appreciate, and Kayla appreciate a heads up. Just while I'm thinking of it, I think everybody knows Kayla Cullimore, who works with us. You may recognize another Cullimore here. So the 3 of us and our intern will be there. But if you are going to weigh in or you want to, we'd appreciate knowing ahead of time.
And that is extended
But
to.
we work for you guys. You tell us how you're gonna do it.
And that's extended to staff and faculty too. A lot, education has so many entities that may testify or be working on a bill or something. And they usually, but not always, line up with what our Board of Education priorities are or want us to talk to. So we asked, the superintendent actually sends out the memo to ask the staff to make sure that if they're aware of bills being worked on, that we aren't, to let us know. And if they intend to come up, that they're testifying on behalf of themselves or whatever entity they may be working with. But they need to be very clear that they're not testifying on behalf of Canians unless they've notified us and it's been approved by you all and by us. So,
Because so many groups are, and I'm just adding this, sorry. So many groups are coming up wearing colors. You know the groups. They've asked that if you're representing public education, you wear white.
white this year.
No, white,
Interesting.
that's kind of hard for winter.
A white shirt, you can still, I
That's
don't know, they just said white. Because isn't the parent, some of them wear red, some of them wear
So
blue.
the teachers often wear red. I think that.
Yeah, we always have red, red
Yeah.
for red, but
Interesting.
I can't wait to see Charlie's 3
Yeah,
pictures.
Charlie and Susan, let's get some white.
she can wear a little white scarf.
So,
You can wear a white scarf.
okay.
That's good.
So these are the session dates that we know right now where you will all have constituents up. If it says school tour, those are field trips basically, and you are right, we have far less this year. We do have 2 or 3 scheduled after the session that we'll notify you of later in case you want to come up when your schools come. You're always welcome to join us. Each one is different. We are very, like he said, we have an intern and we're very flexible in how we help them. Some of them have booked their tours ahead of time and have enough capital aids that they don't need us. Some didn't do that or don't have enough. The capital cuts them off at a certain number. And so then they need additional help. The legislators always want to meet with them. And so we try to schedule that so that they can see them and meet with them. In some cases, we work with the legislators to get them behind the scenes, depends on the group and the size and the age.
They've limited the amount of time that schools can be up there to an hour.
Correct. And
So
some
that's
of
one
the
of the
groups-
reasons,
Groups.
some of the
So-
groups, so.
So you will, it will be a different year and a different looks. There's a lot, not just outside, but inside construction limitations. The Hall of Governors, if you're familiar with that,
That's the
is under construction.
first floor.
which is difficult because that's where a lot of the groups go and meet and then there's some other. So it's gonna be a different year for sure in the tours. I got USBA Day on the Hill. Thank you for letting me know about that yesterday. What I don't know yet is, are there any expectations of us?
We don't know yet. We'll know.
We usually like to meet with our legislators, but
Right.
we need to get together and figure out what.
We are meeting on Thursday.
Okay, so
So I
I
can-
can know and then we'll work on that.
We're meeting on
So
Thursday.
that's, yeah, we're gonna get legislators there. We probably ought to get on it sooner.
We are working on, before the end of this week, letting the legislators know every time we're expecting them to be someplace and what hours and times. So the sooner we know, the better.
We always have schools that show up that we're
Announced.
unannounced, which is fine. It's less work for us. But we can give them so much more of a better experience than they would get for the normal Capitol tour. So we always like to encourage anybody that's listening to work it through us, because even though it's more work for us, I think it's a much better experience for the students.
Our legislators get a little testy because they've gotten used to us saying your school will be here on this day and this time. And when they find out afterwards that their school was there and they didn't know, they get a little testy.
Understood.
You send out details of our involvement at PTSA Day at the Hill.
You technically have none, and this is the same thing.
Yeah, I just want to know their schools. Like, I want to know, like,
We'll try. So here's what's happened with PTSA Day on the Hill. They've limited them to 1 hour. They get handed a scavenger hunt that they go on their own to go look around, and that's the limit. They don't do the mock debates. They don't meet with legislators. We've told our PTAs, we will meet with them after they finish their 1 hour. We'll meet with them and we'll try to make those things happen, but it won't be a full day like it has been in the past because of the limitations. But as soon as we know who's coming when, we will absolutely let you know. There's actually 2 days, but our Region 17 PTA asked all of our PTAs to try to go that day if they could.
If this changes or if schools are
We'll
added,
get you.
we will certainly let you guys know.
The Junior Women in Business, I put on because Amanda's daughter is a Junior Women in Business. So that's the day they're coming up. We have somewhat limited space, and the adult women are not coming that day, but the girls will be there. So if any questions or anytime you want to come up for those, let you know, and we will send the full schedule to you as soon as we can. If you want to become expert tour guides, we can always use you. It's a lot of fun, but it's chaos. And that, I think that's it.
So in terms of legislation that we already know is coming, there's not a lot on that list right now that's, well, I shouldn't say there's not a lot. There's no surprises in that 107 bills that are currently on the list. You know, the surprises are, I think we'll probably see by the middle of February. Or sooner, you know, you guys remember they unveiled the voucher bill and ran it in 2 days. I don't expect anything quite that dramatic to happen. The school safety bill, which is the follow-up of the school safety bill last year.
The year before.
And the year before is over 2,000 lines. So,
Is that gonna be a good thing? Like, are they fixing something?
well, it depends, they say that generals spend their time fighting the last war, preparing for the last war. And I'm starting to get the feeling that that's what we're doing with school safety, is we're preparing for what we're doing is not really as helpful moving forward as it would have been 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Just to be really frank about it, I think it was Richard Nixon that said that just because I'm paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get me. I'm concerned, this school safety is hugely expensive. And I am concerned that the inclination of the legislature is going to be to pour money in that rather than in the traditional education funding that we would have normally gotten. They ran this bill through law enforcement. What's it called? What's that committee called? Criminal Justice and Law Enforcement. So, it's full of sheriffs and police officers and people like that on the task force, and they ran it through that committee. And you know, so they really should be funding it through that committee. They're not going to, but they really should be. But my concern is that they're going to divert, I don't know if divert's the right word, but money that might have ordinarily have gone to traditional education funding, go to this. And then at the end of the session, it won't be separated out. You know, it'll just be, we put this much money into public education, when in reality, they put hundreds of millions of dollars into their pet project and not actually into education. Trying to choose my words carefully here. So, you know, that bill's drafted now and ready to go. Is it numbered?
It is numbered,
What's the
just
number?
barely. What it is, she'll find the
So
number.
it's numbered, it's gonna go, we'll be done with it probably within the first few weeks of the legislative session, other than the funding, which will get done at the end.
Is that, so is this, so I was wondering if.
That's live.
I'm not Sure.
Yeah, that's live.
We don't have all the bills on it so that we can fit the yellow line in there, but it's, the two red items are live.
You know, we don't have the final revenue projections, but I haven't heard anything good about revenue projections. We won't have those until the third week in February. Then we'll, you know, we'll know.
One of the things you'll see attached on the side, because we don't have any indication in a bill, but in interim, they talked about, Leon, the information system adoption, and it's in a slideshow over there on the right-hand side that might give you some context or what they're thinking. We just don't have anything on a bill yet. School fees, same, we don't have, we've been told it's coming and there's nothing out there yet. We have a draft attached here that they used in interim, but.
I'm really nervous about this because I've heard Representative Strong and Senator Milner explain the bill 3 times, and then I've read the bill twice. The bill that they explain and the bill that I've read
The same.
aren't the same bill. So I'm hoping they line up closer to what Senator Milner and Representative Strong have told us they would be. If they do, I think it'll be less controversial, but if they continue with the bill that I've seen drafted, it's not going to be good. Can we answer any other questions, you know, especially if you've heard about specific legislation that any questions you guys might have? We don't have a lot yet. When we meet on the 21st, we'll talk almost exclusively about bills.
Okay, Amanda.
So we all know that they love to attend certain conferences. Do we know what was pushed at the last one, the most conservative conference, where they got the bright idea for the voucher bill?
They continue to talk about that. Micro schooling was done. Is that what they're called? The
Yes.
micro schools? Those were talked about at ALEC, as was a lot of AI, how it integrates more at the state level than the education level, but it was a component. I don't remember, we went through the agendas. Do you remember other specifics? NCSL this year had very, very little to do with education, had a couple of very generic topics, but just not much. ALEC had a little bit more, but we're keeping track of the agendas for this next year to see.
NCSL is a national conference of state legislatures. ALEC is the American Legislative Exchange Council. And so that is considered to be quite a conservative conference. And NCSL is more bipartisan. And those are the two that we track. The reason we track ALEC is because we have, as Amanda's just alluding to, we have a lot of legislators that go and pay, even those that don't go, that pay attention to what comes out of that conference. So we pay attention to it too.
I mean, it's not to say that every idea is out there and it's something we'd get on board with. I mean, I've attended ALEC before a couple times and there's some good things there, but I feel like it is a good yellow canary for us to be aware of what's coming, so.
Well, and we, like I said, are tracking this year. There wasn't much on the agendas that was something. ALEC is harder for us to attend. The NCSL is open to everybody. And the legislators may have some specific things, but we can actually go and attend classes. ALEC,
And just like they do.
right. ALEC's a little more protectionist, a little harder, but we track the agendas and what's going to be in the education scope. And then if there is something, we look at it attending, and then obviously can let you all know.
Senator Niederhauser was a big believer in ALEC, and he used to be able to get us into the conference.
Right.
So it was nice. He would get us in. Neither one of us have been since he was a Senate president. Yeah.
And Howard Stevenson for all of his foibles in education, but he kept the NCSL education agenda very robust. Him and there was a senator from Arkansas, I think, that chaired education for several years. And they kept the agenda in education very worth attending and hearing from across the nation, ideas and things that were said. And since he's not been chairing that, the
Yeah, they got-
education agenda has dwindled.
NCSL, they got the Dr. Jekyll, we got the Mr. Hyde. Love Howard.
I used to say that to
Yeah.
them.
Any other questions that we can answer for you guys?
Any other questions, board? Hey, I do want to point something out, and Karen, thank you for sending that email today, but Karen sent an email about JLC, and I wanted to make sure you knew, Susan, that they are not going to be serving lunch anymore.
I heard that, which is.
So board members,
Sad.
JLC is 11 to.
We talked
Make the
about
meeting shorter.
Is it a cost?
on the way up.
No, because I don't think that ever slowed down the meeting.
And JLC is Joint Legislative Committee. You guys
It's a huge
board
expense.
members, and it's a committee of superintendents, board members, and business administrators around the state, and they meet every Friday, and there are voting members. So Karen is a voting member. And they take positions on education bills.
I'm also a voting member.
Oh, you are?
Cut down on attendance,
Yeah, yeah,
or are they just trying to cut down?
Is it cut that down on cost?
It was just a huge expense, and they could never get an accurate count. How they were always
There
running
was like
short.
90 people, no.
I know.
90 or 100 when I was training.
And you know, people come in and they don't, it's not just JLC members, it's,
Yeah, it's everyone.
and that's why they decided that we needed to cut that down. We may change our mind and add it back in, but at the moment, we're gonna try it without.
Well, and like we were just discussing, there's a high probability we'll figure out some way for whoever of us attends to get there and bring lunch with them and
Yeah.
for companions people, and everybody else can sit and watch us eat, I guess.
So then we probably need to like, who should we let know if we're gonna plan to attend JLC then?
Karen, I'll be there.
Karen?
Yeah, you can tell me.
Karen, you're gonna
Rick?
stop and get lunch first.
I'm
just kidding.
Maybe,
She's gotta be there on time. Maybe somebody else.
We'll figure it out.
maybe. Pete beats it. He beats me there all the time.
I get there early
He's-
to get chairs.
Oh, do you have your meeting before?
He's the
that?
chairman.
So does Leon. Leon's usually there too.
I know, literally chairman.
Okay.
You just
guys
check
know
in
you don't get
between
there
us,
early.
we'll
You're
figure
standing
out
up in the
somebody in
back.
between the Capitol and there, we'll stop and get lunch.
We'll get an
We'll
order
just
for
need
people that are coming
an
and
hour.
have lunch there for you guys. So listen, we appreciate,
First in the door needs to get the tables for us because we'll be coming. late.
He always does. He's there a good half hour early, good half hour early. And then Leon's usually there and then we all kind of trickle in from there.
thank you. We appreciate the opportunity of representing you guys at the legislature. We're looking forward to this legislative session. We're hoping it'll be successful. And
It is what it
please, we say this every year, don't ever hesitate to contact any of the three of us with any questions you might have, any concerns you might have. You see something on this list, even if it's been on there for 3 weeks and you got a question, don't hesitate to contact us. Typically, we're waiting on you guys to make your committee assignments, but we typically have a meeting with the legislative committee once a week at the Capitol. Given the parking situation, if people don't want to come up, we may try to do it on the phone or Zoom this year, whatever the committee itself wants to do. But we welcome anybody in those meetings and would love to have the input of any of you guys on any piece of legislation we're working on, whatever. And we want you guys to feel like we work for you. And so don't hesitate to call and tell us what to do.
Okay, thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Susan. We
You also,
appreciate it.
also on we left you another legislative party card. I think most of you had already seen it. It's yours. But we did add the QR code on the back that links to, so these are the priorities that you can fit on a little card, but communications maintains the rest of the story. If you go to that QR code, it will link, and it's not built out yet, but it links and where you can add more information. So if you have more detail or opinion pieces from your board or whatever, then they will make that a little more robust, more than you can fit on a card, so people can read that.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have 5 minutes, you guys, till 7, so. Great, and-
I'd like to welcome you to the Canyons Board of Education meeting here on January 7th, 2025. My name is Leon Wilcox. I'm the business administrator for the district. I will be conducting the first couple agenda items of this meeting. I would like to notice that all 7 board members are on the rostrum with us. We want to extend a special welcome to our 2 new board members, Jackson Lewis in District 1 and Katie Dahl in District 3. So welcome them and our other 5 board members as well. Should be noted that we are meeting at the district office located at 9361 South, 300 East in Sandy. Our first item of business will be to approve the agenda for today, January 7th, 2025. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
I'll make a motion. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Holly.
We have a motion by Mrs. Nybar.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda for the Canyons Board of Education meeting for January 7th.
And do we have a second, please?
I'll second it.
And a second by Mrs. Oakes. Any discussion to the motion, please? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Voting is unanimous. We will now, it should be noted that during our oath of office, we did the Pledge of Allegiance there. So we will now have Mr. Ken Rowley, our great principal at Alta High, come up and give us a few school highlights from Alta.
I gotta push that, sorry. There we go. It's an honor to be here this evening, and I appreciate the opportunity to share a few thoughts about Alta High School with each one of you guys today, and especially our school board and our superintendent. First, I'd like to express my gratitude to each one of you for your successful efforts in setting the standard for education in the state of Utah. Without your vision, support, or guidance, we couldn't do what we do each day. So thank you. There are many things that I could talk about tonight. But I have chosen a few things that you won't find in a newspaper or a news source. Those are easy to find. They're usually headlines and things like that. But the things I'm excited about tonight, there's 4 or 5 things that you won't find in the newspaper. So, and I am really excited about them. So, but the thing that they do is they focus on the amazing faculty and staff that I have, and they focus on the amazing and the high quality of students that we have in our building. So a little under a year ago, we implemented a new attendance policy at Alta High School. And if you compare today's data to last year's data at this time, we have a decrease of 18% in unexcused absences. In addition to the success of the attendance policy, now we add on our personal technology policy that we implemented at the beginning of this school year. And I see students that are not in the hallways, but in classrooms and highly engaged in their learning process. Last year, we gave 987 AP exams. 70% of those tests that were given scored a 3 or higher on those AP exams. And we had 7 subjects that had 100% of passing rate. And, excuse me, 4 years ago, we had 0 English language learners show adequate progress or proficiency on the end of year RISE testing. Today, we have 53% of our English language learners that are showing proficiency and making adequate progress. Just an FYI, an invitation to everyone here tonight. On the week of January 21st to 25th, we will be holding our multicultural week that week. And just a few of the highlights. We will have our multicultural walk during both lunches on the 22nd, which is a Wednesday. This is where students will set up tables throughout the commons area, and they will showcase their country and culture through music, dress, and food. And students can go around and be introduced or get to know better some of the culture items from those countries. We have, 48 different countries that are represented at Alta High School and 15 different languages that are represented in our student population. On the 23rd, we have our multicultural assembly for our student body in the gym. It's set at 9 a.m. And there we will have students performing some of their native dances and or songs in their native attire. On the 25th, we have our multicultural dance. If you dare come to a high school dance, you're welcome. And then on February 4th, we have our multicultural parent night. And that's one of two because we do one later on this year also. But that night, it'll be from 6 to 7:30 p.m. in our commons area where family and students and families can come and they can connect with our community, our school, and college to career resources that we have available to them. We'll be serving a dessert that night. If you've already eaten dinner, you're welcome to come and have dessert with us. So these are just a few of the many exciting things that are happening at Alta High School. We are blessed to have some of the absolute best educators working there, and we have the most amazing students that walk the halls every day. And once again, I'd like to express my personal gratitude to each one of you for all you do for me professionally and our community at Alta High School. And with that being said, go Hawks. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Rowley, and yes, go Hawks. We'll now move to agenda item 6. I will actually go down to the podium there. So as I just said, we'll move to agenda item 6, the reorganization of board leadership for the next 2 years. We will follow the policy that the board has created for this. It's found in policy 100.01. It's the election of and duties of board officers, okay? Or election of board officers and their duties. I'm just going to read the first paragraph of this policy. By state statute, in the first board business meeting of January following a general election, so this meeting, the board elects a president and vice president to serve a 2-year term. The board may appoint other officers from time to time following established procedures herein according to Utah code. No extra compensation, power, or authority is given to board officers other than what is provided for board members. It should be noted that for the last 12 years, we have actually revised or somewhat deviated from this policy whereas we have 2 vice presidents rather than just 1. So if we wish to continue that process moving forward, we'll need a motion and a second and to vote to approve that moving forward. I'd also wish to note that as we've done in the past, there will not be a first vice president or a second vice president, but just co-vice presidents together, okay? So do we have a motion to have 2 vice presidents rather than 1?
I move that we have 2 vice presidents.
So we have a motion by Mr. Edel. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
We're gonna we'll let Mrs. Pedersen have the second there, if that's okay.
Sure.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion to the motion?
So when I got on the board, this actually used to be a little bit of a controversy. We've had a previous board member that didn't like the idea of a second vice president. Since that time, he served as a second vice president, and he quickly came to realize that there's wisdom in having 2. It's just a lot of work between taking in all of the emails from patrons, making sure that those are looked over and properly answered in a timely manner and coordinated with our communications department and also agenda planning. And there are times that people go out of town. It's just helpful to have the coverage, and I personally think we should probably make it permanent in our policy. It's just me, but anyway.
Thank you. Any other comments to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor for 2 vice presidents, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Any opposed, I should say. Seeing none, motion passes unanimously. Let me just quickly review the duties of the board president before we nominate and vote. The board president shall, again, this is going straight out of the policy, shall provide at all meetings of the board, appoint all committees, and sign warrants ordered by the board to be drawn upon by the business administrator for school funds. Work with the vice president and the superintendent, or vice presidents now, to create board meeting agendas and approve them for publication. Number 3, ensure board meetings are conducted appropriately according to federal and state laws and board policy. Number 4, the board, speak for the board as a whole after a vote, but otherwise, the president has no authority to supervise or direct administration. Number 5, counsel with individual board members regarding appropriate behavior, actions, and conduct. And then also, to just review the duties of the vice presidents, the vice presidents shall, in the absence of the president, fulfill the role and responsibility of the office of president. Work with the president in creating board meeting agendas and other tasks assigned by the president. So again, coming from policy, the duties of both the board president and vice presidents. Now, we'll just quickly review the procedures for election of board officers, again, out of the policy. The following procedures utilized for electing one officer at a time will be used for selecting a board member to serve in each office. Number 1, and we will proceed with the office of board president first. Any board member may make a nomination for any office, including the nomination of oneself. Nominations do not need to be seconded, but a motion, a second, and a vote will close the nominations. Then voting. To be elected an officer, a nominee must receive a majority of votes cast. Voting shall be by roll call. Candidates for an office shall be voted on in accordance to the order of nominations. The first nominee to receive the majority of the votes cast is elected to that office, and the voting ceases for that office. So is there any questions with that? So again, we will start with the board president. I will now accept nominations for the board president of Canyon School District for the next 2 years.
I would like to nominate Amber Schill for board president.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. We have a nomination for Mrs. Schill. Is there any other nominations?
Can we second a nomination? No, no
You
need.
don't need to be seconded,
Gotcha.
no. If there is none, I would ask for following the policy, a motion to close the nominations, and a second, then we'll vote on closing the nominations.
I'll second.
Or we need a motion first.
I move that we close nominations.
We'll let Mr. Edel has made that motion,
And I'll second it, yeah.
and Mrs. Nybar has seconded it. Any discussion of the motion?
I'll say something.
Please.
I just want to give a shout out to Amber and what an awesome board president she's been. And serving with her, I obviously served with Nancy before, but you have been amazing in so many different ways and right on top of it. And I have been very comfortable and confident in your leadership. So I'm excited to see you fulfill that role again.
I'm not supposed to second it, but I will second those comments. Amber has been terrific. With that, are there any other comments? Seeing none, I will now call for a vote to close the nominations. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none. So that motion passes. We will now do the roll call vote. I will now start with Mrs. Nybar and work across. So the vote is to nominate or vote for Amber Schill as the next board president for the next 2 years.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Edel.
Yes.
Mrs. Schill.
Yes.
Mrs. Oaks.
Yes.
Mrs.
Yes.
Dahl.
Yes.
Mrs. Pedersen. So voting is unanimous, Cindy. So congratulations to Amber Schill. We're excited to have you back with us. Don't know, hopefully you feel the same way. Yeah. We will now move to voting, nominating, and electing the first vice president, again, I want to emphasize there will be co-vice presidents. So, but the first one, okay? So I will now accept nominations for the vice president for the Board of Education. Anyone but, now President Shill.
I'd like to make a nomination for Amanda Oakes as the vice president.
So we have a motion or nomination for Mrs. Oakes as vice president. Any other?
Yes, also nominating Andrew Edel as
Okay,
vice president. We can just do both of them at the same time. No, we can't. No, okay. We'll wait on that.
we will, are there any other motions for this? So with that being said, can I have a nomination to close?
I move that we
Motion
close
to close.
nominations.
We have a motion to close the nominations. Is there a second, please?
I second the motion.
We have a second by Mrs. Dahl. Is there any comment or discussion to the motion? Mr. Edel, please.
You earned this. No, but I do want to say how much I've enjoyed working with you as a vice president and how much I've been able to learn from you. So I'm excited for you to serve another term as vice president, and thank you for doing it. It's a big lift, and it's a pretty thankless lift. So I appreciate you.
And yeah, yes, we do appreciate all the work that Mrs. Oakes has put in the last 2 years serving as vice president. So thank you. With that, any other comments? If not, I will now call for a vote. All in favor of closing the nominations, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Seeing none, that motion passes. Again, we'll now do the roll call vote for Amanda Oakes to serve as the next 2 years as one of the board's vice president. We will now start at this side, move down from Mrs. Pedersen,
Yes.
Mrs. Dahl.
Yes.
Mrs. Oakes,
Yes.
Mrs. Shill,
Yes.
President Shill, Mr. Edel,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
and Mrs. Nybar.
Yes.
Voting is unanimous, so congratulations to Amanda Oakes, again, serving as one of the board's vice presidents. So glad to have you back with us. We will now move to this second vice president, again, co-vice presidents. I will accept any nominations for that except for President Shill and Vice President Oakes.
I would like to nominate Mr. Andrew Edel.
So we have a nomination for Mr. Edel. Any other? If not, I will accept a motion to close the nominations.
Motion to close nominations.
Have a motion, and then we have a second.
I second the motion.
Motion by Mr. Lewis, second by Mrs. Dahl. Any discussion to the motion, please, to close the nominations?
I will say something. Andrew came in after months' unfortunate and untimely death, and I was really impressed by how quickly you've jumped into this role and figured out the ins and outs of it, even despite some of your work commitments and travel schedule. Like, I've been so impressed. Like, you've taught me a lot about how to give people a clear runway about when you're going to be gone. You're a master at it. And even has taken meetings like from out of the country. Like, he's been very dedicated and has really done a great job serving the board. So
Again, I shouldn't second it, but Mr. Edel's been fantastic, again, meeting with us virtually and on the other side of the world, literally, so thank you over the last several months. With that, I will we will now have a vote to close the nominations. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, that motion passes unanimous. We'll start back here at this side with Mrs. Nybar on the roll call. Again, Mr. Edel being one of the vice presidents.
Yes.
Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Edel,
Yes.
Ms. President Shill,
Yes.
Vice President Oakes.
Yes.
Mrs. Dahl,
Yes.
and Mrs. Pedersen.
Yes.
Voting is unanimous. So again, we want to welcome back President Shill, Vice President Oakes, Andrew and Vice President Edel. Thank you for your service the last couple years, and looking forward to working with you the next 2 years. So again, thank you very much. I will now turn it back to you, President Shill, to conduct the balance of the meeting.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wilcox. I really appreciate that. And I just want to take a little point of privilege, if that's okay, and just say thank you to the board for their confidence in me. And I do love organizing stuff, so I'm excited to be able to continue to serve, and I just really appreciate all of you. And I want to also tell Amanda and Andrew, thank you. Like, there's been times when I've been out of town and they've really stepped up, and they're always willing to look at emails and answer my texts. I try not to bug them, but at all times of the day. So I really appreciate their dedication, and I really love working with them. So I'm excited. So thank you. Okay, so we're going to go on to the next item on the agenda, which is the Canyon Strong recognitions. And I will turn the time over to Kirsten Stewart, Associate Director of Communications, and also recognize that Jeff Haney is Director of Communications. No, he is not with us.
There we go. Thank you, President Schill, for this time to recognize the achievements of our employees and our students here in Canyon School District for going above and beyond in their pursuit. Those who are mentioned tonight will receive letters of commendation from the board and superintendent. And before we move on to our honorees, I wanted to remark on a district-wide achievement that we were celebrating just as we went into the holiday recess. As you all know, reading is fundamental, especially for third grade. It's a pivotal year, right, to reach reading literacy for students. And our teachers here at Canyon Districts are a cut above when it comes to instilling this skill in our students. The State Board of Education recently released a report showing the percentage of each Utah school district's third graders who were reading at proficiency level in the third grade last year. And, drum roll, Canyon's district was #1 in Salt Lake County. Canyon's is also among the top in the state too, so takes a lot of work to get there. As you're aware, all Canyon's elementary teachers have been undergoing a lot of training on the science of reading, and all of our students are reaping the benefits, right? Not just our third grade class. So a big thanks to our teachers, principals, staff, instructional coaches, administrative leaders for their commitment to early literacy. Our next honorees are 2 Canyons District alumni who competed last week for the coveted Miss America crown. That's right, Canyons alumni are shining on the national stage. So during the break, Miss Utah, Paris Matthews, who is a graduate of Brighton High, and Miss Washington, D.C., Katie Ann Powell, who is a Hillcrest graduate, both competed for Miss America in Florida. Both Matthews and Powell grew up through Canyon School District and continue to give back to their communities in their acts of service as well as in their careers. They both performed admirably in the pageant. They didn't take the crown, but we're no less proud of their achievements. In fact, our Connect Canyons crew, the podcast crew, actually had a chance to catch up with Paris Matthews, who has dreamed of winning this title since she was a little girl. And if you haven't tuned into the podcast episode yet, I'd encourage you to do so. Both Paris and Katie and Powell are remarkable community leaders and really great ambassadors for Canyon School Districts. So our next honorees are 8 Canyons District grapplers who tomorrow will compete in the 24th annual Ross Bronson Utah All-Star Duels Meet at Utah Valley University. That's a tongue twister. Tomorrow night we'll have Huskies, Chargers, and Beat Diggers. All will take the mat at the UCCU Center at Utah Valley. This is a showcase of some of the best prep wrestlers in the state. And among the 62 girls invited to the USA Wrestling Utah event are 3 Hillcrest Huskies who just so happen to be sisters. You might recognize their names from previous years. They've medaled at state tournaments. Eliza, Eva, or it could be Ava, and Katie Zimmerman, as well as Jordan High's Abby West. And among the 61 boys wrestling are 4 Corner Canyon Chargers, Kason Jones, Carl Ledbetter, Caden Williams, and Tanner Telford. So best of luck to our wrestlers. Our next honoree is Eastmont's Darren Wagner, Eastmont Middle. This PE teacher was recently recognized by KUTV and Volkswagen Southtown as KUTV's December Teacher of the Month. Mr. Wagner's students told KUTV Carrie Hawker Diaz they appreciate his determination and how he works to help them not only achieve his class, but also provide a safe space for them to share their hopes and dreams. So as part of this recognition, Mr. Wagner actually received a $750 check, and courtesy of Volkswagen Southtown. And we congratulate Mr. Wagner and celebrate his continued success with the Patriots. Last but not least, of course, Draper Park Middle and their students and their CTE teacher, Pamela Saltmarsh, are our next honoree for the evening. So when CNBC contacted representatives for the state of Utah saying they wanted to feature a school that was known for being innovative and kind of embodied that entrepreneurial spirit of the state, that spotlight was turned to Draper Park Middle and Saltmarsh in particular, who runs a Shark Tank competition for young entrepreneurs. And really, the Vikings were chosen among thousands of students for this showcase. And they were able to face off with each other in front of local business tycoons like Sandy Hendry, who's the CEO of Minky Couture, chairman of Colliers International, Brandon Fugel, four-time Olympic freestyle skier, Ashley Caldwell. So the event was held at Junior Achievement City in Orem and overseen by CNBC senior business correspondent Sharon Epperson and KSL TV anchor Shara Park. And you can just see there the excitement on the kids' faces. And I mean, it definitely to be showcased on that national stage is pretty impressive, and I think a great activity, an opportunity for those kids. And that's all I have for you this evening. Thank you, President Schill and the board, for the time you give to honor our students and faculty and staff.
Okay, thank you so much. We really appreciate that, and that's always just a highlight of our meeting. So next is patron comments, and we actually do not have any comments today, so we will move on to the consent agenda. And I will now take a motion to approve the consent agenda for today. And please read each item individually.
I motion that we approve the consent agenda, approval of minutes for December 3rd, 2024, approval of hire and termination reports, approval of student overnight travel, and approval of November financial reports.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll make a second.
Oh, go for it.
We have a lot of seconds today. So Karen, put Karen down for that. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion to that motion? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Okay, the next item is a highly awaited item on our agenda, and it is the Industry Focus Group Report. And Susan Edwards, Public Engagement Coordinator, and Pat Jones, Consultant, will be presenting this item. So thank you for both for being here. We're excited to hear this.
Thank you, President Schill. And welcome to our newest board members and to everybody back for the new year. That's okay. Okay, there we go. So I think everyone, including our new board members, are familiar with this topic, with the purchase of the building that eBay has been in, and that we are been looking at a new innovation center long before that building even was on our foresight. I know lots of work from many of you traveling the country and the state to look at different options, and throughout the entirety of that, one of the things you have guided us and directed us on is you've got to involve industry leaders. You've got to make connections with industry leaders. And we kind of waited and pondered how to do that. And when we finally got into discussions, we did initially reach out by phone to a few, and the response was a little lukewarm. It was like, okay, education calls us a lot. They want a lot from us, and they want internships, and they want things, but let us know when you have some direction, which is, we've reported back to you before. It was kind of a lukewarm response. And we got into discussions about the best way to engage them, to one, pique their interest, and two, let them know what we were doing. So we reached out and extended an invitation to Pat Jones to come. And Pat is a longtime friend of mine and Charlie's, former senator, and I actually, throughout my adult life, served on some focus groups, and she'll tell a little bit more about herself and her husband, Dan, who has subsequently passed away, but about their research and what they did. And I'm like, there's just nobody better to help with this. So we brought Pat in and talked to her. She'll probably tell you we coerced her out of retirement to come do this. And I want to first introduce Pat, let her talk a little bit about herself and about why focus groups, how they work, and what she does. I told her today to bring the magic out of the participants, and then we'll get into some of the details. Pat?
Thank you. It is a pleasure to be with each one of you, and I want to thank you for the time that you spend with so much or so little fanfare. Let's put it that way. You are in a really important job, each one of you, and how much I have enjoyed working with the Canyon School District over the years. I was in the legislature when this district was split with the Jordan School District, so I went through that. And so I'm quite familiar with some of the stresses that you enjoy, but I'm really struck by the information that we received from our business community. You have a unique window of opportunity here, one that I have not seen before. I worked in qualitative and quantitative research for 35 years. I was co-founder and president of Dan Jones and Associates. I worked in quantitative research for many years, but I became fairly well known in qualitative research. And probably, I think we figured out about 1,500 focus groups I did over the years here and of course outside of the state of Utah. And so that background was extremely helpful to me as I researched all kinds of different things from tracks to ice cream and really learned a lot about that. I spent every year in training with QRCA, the Qualitative Research Consultants Association, learned best practices, what works, what isn't, what are some of the new things that are coming into vogue, and some of the things that are really important to know. And I still do focus groups, believe it or not, for things that I really care about. So after we sold our company in 2010, I was asked by the new owners, the Cicero Group, to stay with them for 5 years. That was in end of 2014. I also had served in the state legislature for 14 years in the House and in the Senate, and that was a great experience. And so I thought I was retiring in 2015 when I was asked to run the Women's Leadership Institute. And I have been there for 10 years. Our mission is to elevate the stature of women's leadership in business and in politics. So I'm still working full-time, even though I'm older, and I plan to retire from some things, although I'll still be on several boards on June 1st. So I'm here as just a person that respects you and respects what you do. It's been an honor to work with your staff, with your wonderful superintendent. I was on several committees with higher ed and public ed for so many years that I really understand the things that you face every day. So thank you for your service. Let me just say that. I mentioned that I have never seen in many of my focus groups over the years the interest that we have among these great CEOs that we had attend these focus groups. We had 6 groups, and they were amazing. Sometimes you wonder whether they will be honest and whether the things that they are asked to do, like some of these drawings and things that we use for interventions in focus groups, that they would be willing to do that. Well, guess what? They were. And they were marvelous, and they had really great ideas. And it was because they love the idea of what you're doing. And this is why I say you have a narrow time here where you can do some magical things with business. I mentioned to Susan and Superintendent earlier that what these businesses were asking for was kind of a mix of the Lassonde Institute, if you have been to the Lassonde Institute at the University of Utah, and maybe more of an adult junior achievement. I'm in a business now where I work with neuroscientists to understand the complementary differences between men and women's brains, and we've learned quite a bit about that. And it reminds me of what they're asking for, that oftentimes men's brains work more like a waffle, where there's more silos, and women's brains work more like spaghetti. Okay, so not everybody thinks alike, but I will tell you that these business leaders are looking for more the spaghetti view on what they want at this innovation center. So let me just tell you a little bit about, I'll make it really quick, the quantitative versus qualitative. Quantitative, of course, as you all know, tells you and measures how many. That's important to know. And you can make projections based on sample size and who the audience is and so forth. It's getting more difficult to measure that, frankly, because of its obvious reasons. So we're seeing research more go qualitative. I'm a big believer in qualitative research, focus groups, one-on-one interviews, getting the in-depth. And focus groups and qualitative research really gives you information about the how and the why. So it's like an onion that we peel back and to really find out what's motivating for people. What is it that challenges them? What suggestions do they have? And there's a real art to doing it the right way. It looks really easy and it's not. So with quantitative, you can extrapolate the data. Qualitative, not so much. However, if you do enough focus groups, you will see over and over the same directional trends. I feel very good about the research that we conducted. I have never seen such completely cohesive information from one group to another. So this is really quite conclusive, what we heard. Now, I remember doing focus groups probably 10 years ago, and these were CEOs of tech companies. And I asked some similar questions that we asked in these focus groups. And guess what the companies were looking for? These were CEOs. They were looking for, we asked them, what are the difficulties you're having finding between what you're finding is available and what you're needing in the industries that you're finding? And the first one, lack of oral communication, written communication, problem solving, critical thinking skills. But add to that language, and it's not just, the language that many of the people, the population in the state of Utah understand languages and learn languages, but it's about business culture in different companies, different geographies, different countries, and how that applies. So that's very important to know too. And this also came through here. I heard words, and I know that everyone else that was in the focus group listening there, our superintendent, and of course Susan Edwards and others, we heard the words like tinkering. We heard words like thinking, being able to think critically. We heard about willingness to risk failure in a safe space. We heard the word rigorous, wanting something that no longer, it seems much more sophisticated in need now. The importance of presenting, being in a place where people can practice, young people can practice presenting information that they haven't had in the past. There are many others that you'll hear in just a minute. But I look at it as mimicking the marketplace. That's a term I like to use because that's what companies are looking for, a one-stop shop. They're wanting to help students understand from the front to the back of it, the finance, the business plan, the R&D ideas, the marketing, the sales, the delivery, all of these things as an opportunity for our students. And this would be unique, let me just tell you, in our public school systems. And to have these business leaders congratulate you, look up to Canyon School District as the place that is starting to be innovative. I heard it in the legislature all the time, how Weber school district's doing it. The way you have planned, I believe, is even more rigorous than that. Is a better plan than even they have. So that's all I have to say, and I'm going to turn the time back to Susan, and if you have questions of me as we go, I can't wait to hear. I've read it, and it's done a beautiful job of doing that, and I can't wait to hear it. So thank you for allowing me to do it.
Thank you, Pat, and for all of your assistance. So let's take a dive into many of the things that she discussed. So research goals, we had narrowed down, you all participated in naming these and crafting these, as did Superintendent Robbins. I'll tell you, when you show up, and we don't meet every day with CEOs and some of these tech executives, and we show up and Pat has laying on the table animal pictures, and we'll get back to those, but animal pictures on the table, I'm like, how's this gonna go? How are they gonna receive this? And we'll come back to that in a minute, the animal pictures. But here are the research goals. How well are public schools in Utah preparing students for careers in your industry? What are industry leaders looking for in employees? What should this center look like in design and in feel? What should this center offer? What are the most important experiences or opportunities for students to have at this center? And moving forward, how best does Canyons District partner with industry? We went about this several different ways. First, when our students prepared for work and further education, and I think you always go into these things with a little preconceived notion, but this is one of the areas I was most surprised that across all 6 groups, the response was very lukewarm to how students are being prepared. And they were very consistent that it was not an indictment on education, on K-12, for the most part. They were very open about their own experiences as individuals and their own experiences as parents and what they're seeing. And very in tune, I would say, with different learners, different styles of learners. And just felt like that students aren't coming out right now. But they also were very knowledgeable about some of the reasons why. And point 3 on there, one of them is parents, is that we're in the middle of a current generation, and most of them included themselves, of parents who are not willing to let their children fail and learn. And that needs some help. And that was very consistent. They also, that kids just don't know how to fail, and got into the grading system, that receiving a letter grade is just very black and white. You're either succeeding or you're not, but you're not allowed to fail always and grow from it, try again and keep going, which you all, along with your leadership, administrative-wise, will have to have a lot of discussion about what does that look like? What does a grading system here look like? And is there a way to impact that system-wide? But there was a lot of discussion about the need for safe places to fail and to learn and to still be safe, and to help them understand how to learn from that failure. Exploration, not just at the Innovation Center, and they were very specific about that, but up and down our system, that they need times to tinker, you talked a lot about maker spaces, time to have hands-on learning, so that they are getting into what am I interested in? What are my talents? Where are they? And that it keeps people interested in education. They're not just sitting and receiving, but they're doing. And that was a huge takeaway for the majority. And secondarily in there, it talks about exploration leading to specialization, so that they've done enough, but as they approach the Innovation Center age, that they are starting to think what they might want to specialize in. So in that comes, how do all these jobs tie together? How does something I'm good at maybe influence something else, or maybe give me an interest someplace I didn't know I had? Specific skills, and these came out, the ones I have listed came out to be very, very across the board. Writing, that they just can't write. Most of these read a lot of applications, scholarship applications, and they just are like, kids are struggling with knowing how to write. Their presentation skills, and this was not just standing in front of an audience or giving a TED Talk. This was, though that was certainly said to be, one thing, one struggle, but it was also in an interview on a one-on-one. One of the things multiple groups said, and it's probably why it stuck with me, is that they come in with a portfolio, and they said, I got this certificate, I got this award, and they're like, okay, tell me about it. And they're like, huh? and they can't describe what or why or what they got out of it or what it means to them, and that they need that ability to communicate across every job, whether it's technical, whether it's a trade, whether it's business related or any potential job. They're just not seeing that success. Ability to talk in group settings, teamwork, collaboration. In math, they were very specific that both they and their children, many of them have had struggles in math. Either they're very successful and it clicks, or it doesn't, and they felt like applying math skills to how you might use it, whether that's in your daily finances or whether that's in different jobs, how that applies. And then data analytics became a big piece. Customer service skills, that goes back to being able to talk to people. And then finances, you'll hear throughout this presentation, most of the conversation came back to, and they need to know how to run a business. They need business skills. No matter what they want to go in, there needs to be a pretty thorough business and entrepreneurial skill for all of them. And then life, that just to succeed in life, that today's young adults, I think one of the quotes you'll see in your book is, you just, can't zoom this in. You have to show up. You have to know how to come to work. You have to be there on time. Jobs are 8 hours or jobs are 10 hours, or that everything is not instantaneous rewards, and that they're just not seeing that currently. Durable skills. We talked a bit about this, and this was a huge topic even before we would get to it, that they would bring up. Back to the communication, critical thinking, that was a huge piece. To have curiosity, to be able to problem solve, to be able to recognize that there is a problem and then see how to help solve it, how to be part of that. Collaboration, teamwork, creativity, entrepreneurship, and that somewhat took the seeing things, a problem, a project, a product from start to finish, and what complications and what needs to happen to do that. And then just the basic understanding of how life works, as we just talked about. So we got into design concepts, and they were given pieces of paper. Now, I will say here, she talked about they were very open and very raw. And so these interviews are recorded, and all their drawings and all their writings, we are making those public to all of you. I will be sending you a link for that so you can scour over them. We've chosen not to make that public to the public for reasons that many of them shared their students or some teachers. And turns out, we didn't know this, but a lot of them were our parents. And so a lot of them live in our district. And so we don't really want to share, also like CEO, shares, I was a terrible student and here's what I'm now succeeding at, but we don't really want to share that and have that be the cover of Newsweek, and it was discovered in our focus groups. So we're keeping that confidential, but you will have access to that to read how you want, and then the superintendent and Amber will be able to take into, if we have some special requests to see this, see if that's warranted. These are some of the main things that came. So they drew on a piece of paper, and without fail, the first comment was, "I'm not an artist," but they drew, and you will have access to see all those drawings. They weren't asked to draw like architecturally how this building looks. They were asked to draw their concepts, and some of them are great. You'll see a couple of them in the book, and some of them are quite hilarious, but fun. But they gave us a concept. So this will be one of them that you'll find in the book, and that's just one example of what does this center look like. But these are some of the top things that came out of it. Big, bright, open, that it's a cool space. It's someplace they want to be, that them, the teachers, the industry that might be there. You got to have maker space and tinker spaces, right? That it's modern, that we kind of got that, but not just that it's modern, that you are going to be flexible and innovative enough that you create a model that continues to be current, that it doesn't go out of date in 10 years or 20 years and you're talking about how great this was, but you have a plan to keep it up to date with industry and with demand. That's going to take a lot of thought on your part. She said you've got a instant here to really do this right. That's gonna take a lot of thought. Presentation space. Obviously, we recognize we've got a great auditorium, a great stage, but the other piece is a room. Similar to the Canyon Center, a big open space. And one of the things they talked about, you've got to be able to host fairs, science fairs, makerspace fairs, collaboratives. You've got to be able to host different things, and you're going to need that type of space as well as the stage presentation space. Interview and collaboration rooms, both small, medium, large places industry can come in and meet with a student, interview, or help them polish something and learn one-on-one communications. Also, medium and larger. But those spaces, obviously the labs, the trades, right, which you're already on your radar with our current CTEC and other growth. One of the big things they said is almost all of them work in modern workspaces that are, like she mentioned the Lassonde Center, but you've got Domo and you've got some of the others sitting there, and they're like, they come into those spaces, they need to educate in those spaces. They need to know how they work. They need to be able to eat there and get IT help there and be able to ask questions and to collaborate in both small, large groups. One of the larger requests across the board was that it doesn't matter what they choose to do, but that they have the opportunity to learn how to support and work with people who are in other areas. That you bring a team together of people so that if you're in drones, for instance, that you're working with the people in the shop to figure out how to build it, or 3D printing, that everything has a collaboration to learn from each other. And then the educational model. This was pretty clear. The focus group discussion was that the traditional model of education will not serve these students well. This needs to be a model based on experimentation, curiosity, cooperation, teamwork, and learning to grow through failure. And that whittled down from all 6 groups, pretty specific. The advice to us, keep the ability to be flexible, stay up to date, the building offerings and equipment as industry changes, and then staff training, that it's great to bring in industry, it's great to have teachers and staff that come from industry, but if they come and they're out of industry, they quickly become irrelevant. That they need a partnership, not just for the students, but for the staff to stay involved in industry and in the world and what's going on so that they stay current and relevant. Next steps. The continuation of meetings with industry leaders. We've had a couple outside of the focus groups. We have a list of requests and potentials to have some additional ones that will continue. Some of these, as she mentioned, are so very excited about this and are now chomping at the bit for how do we get involved. And that's going to take, again, some discussion. It's going to take some direction. Some of them may have to include RFPs. Some of them may include funding levels. You're going to have to decide what are the steps and the directions. One thing I think you have given us direction for all along that Superintendent Robbins, with the new director you hire, will be interested in is an advisory group that's ongoing. And so we'll do that. Obviously, there are some design decisions, but there were 2 that kind of rose to the top because a lot of them you're already talking about and fleshing out and figuring out where things will be. But the culinary arts, tourism, and hospitality did not rank very high amongst them. But the space we have and the need, one of the first conversations we had with an industry leader prior to this was, and what this looks like in 11 years, I don't know, but in 10 years, we'll be hosting the Olympics here. And the hospitality industry is going to need a boost and need people to be working in it. So the ability to be able to consider those things and what that looks like. The other thing that we mentioned already is the large meeting space. Your educational model, what that looks like, that's going to be a big discussion for all of you. What we offer there, the programs, and how to be innovative. Some will be interested in building space, helping to bring their industry into the center. some that is not a good fit. There was some discussion about large companies versus small companies. And it was quite an interesting discussion, is that a lot of small companies simply don't have the bandwidth to come in and do something big and help and stuff, but they have an interest, and they may actually become partners in a different way, like users of the space. You could create where they could potentially use space, but they're also there teaching and helping. I don't know. Something you all will have to discuss and think about. And then how to partner with industry, whether it's ongoing advisory space at the center, internships, externships, as we're already doing, and then higher ed, how to partner. And I'll open that up to questions. And also I wanted to give some time to Superintendent Robbins, because he was there and he has some thoughts and visions on this. This book is a written summary of what we've said, goes a little bit more in depth in some places, and then we'll just open that up for questions and for Superintendent.
So first off, Pat, it's good to see you again. And Susan, wow, that was awesome. And thank you so much. This was over a couple of weeks that we went through this process, and it was really stunning, as Pat said, to just go through this process. It's interesting, as Pat and I talked when we first started the conversation with our industry partners, is that this doesn't happen very often. I mean, rare, if that. And I mentioned, this might be something in the future, as I listen to industry and listen to these partners, that, maybe not just at a district level, but even at a school level, at least at our high schools, that there's some level of partnership that's ongoing, where there's this feedback loop that we continue to evolve and to change. And, it's not an indictment on public education, but the reality is that of all industries or entities or enterprises in our country or the world, we're probably the slowest to move, right? As Holly mentioned in her speech earlier about, moving a large school bus, it's definitely has those attributes. And it's interesting, as I listened to Susan and Pat talk, these are my notes that I've taken just along the way. But again, just this true spirit and atmosphere of entrepreneurship, investigation, exploration, research and design. One thing that did come clear, as mentioned, is business principles in all curriculum. That no matter what curriculum students or what pathway they might be involved in, that they are learning, core principles of finance or marketing or margin or whatever it is that's going to help them be successful, that all of that relates. Again, the durable skills, which really align, have strong alignment with our Portrait of a Scholar in Canyons and our strategic plan. But just this real need for students to really become public speakers and presenters and better writers and creators, and really, to me, that speaks to leadership. And we've talked a little bit about that, about creating a leadership strand that I think is weaved through our curriculum. I don't think, one of the things they talked about is that many students or many employees they see have the technical skills, but then when asked to present or to collaborate in a group like that, like this focus group, that many would just, be paralyzed. I mean, and couldn't function in that environment. So that might be something to think about. And then I just really want to hit the word flex. That seemed to really come through over and over and over, this theme of flex. You have to be able to flex and change, evolve, and not become obsolete. And when you think about all the industry that we work with and that's out there that we're preparing our students for, and this is an old adage, that's a cliche that we say in education, but we are preparing students for jobs that are not created yet, right? So we really need to think about that. And then just this industry advisory role and just how important I see this and should be, and something very important as partners, but really shoulder to shoulder at every level. And we've talked a little bit about what that design might look like. I mean, maybe it's a menu. As Susan said, there were different layers. Some of the companies in the industry that we talked to, large enterprises that, hey, we're in, what do you need? Assets, resources, people, others. We can't do that. And so, maybe it's a menu or different options that, or entry points that businesses or industry may have that want to partner with us. But I think it's critical that we really do involve them in all aspects and, all different layers of the organization and ecosystem. And then finally, just as mentioned, right alongside with what's been said, but just this cross-pollination of curriculum, that these spaces have and we've talked about this, I'm glad Scott's here, our architect's here with us, but just this ability in physical space where different curriculums and pathways have the ability to work in conjunction and together on whatever, that project might be. That, rarely is it that you just, work in a cubicle by yourself. Even within your own industry, you're branching out, you're learning about other things, and that kind of speaks to the piece about just this these modern spaces that are, mock-ups or simulated spaces that our students have the opportunity to really engage, that model. So those are just a few notes. Again, it was a fantastic experience. I hope we continue it. What a great opportunity for us. I think, as Pat mentioned, we have this, very specific window to do something really amazing. And interestingly too, and these guys can correct me, but I think all of our participants said they would like to be part somehow, right? I didn't see anyone ever say, hey, this is great, but I'm busy, or, they all had a very growth kind of glass half full mindset, and we have this beautiful opportunity. What can we do to support? So.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent, and thank you, Susan. So board, are there questions? Yeah, Mrs. Nybar.
Okay, I love this. I love what was put together and the questions, and this is a really good process. I really appreciated it. And one thing that I think about is when we're looking at what industry leaders are looking for in employees. We talk about corporate America. As a small business owner, I want us to make sure we also have an emphasis on small business. Small business since 1995 is like 61% of the job growth in America. Also, small businesses make up 99.9% of our, business in America, as well as, I was just looking up that it's 43.5% of the US GDP. So as a small business owner, here's a few things. When I was talking about how we need to make sure that students have the opportunity to fail and learn from that failure, that is huge in small business. The other thing is, just right now going through the hiring process again, it's so important for these kids to understand and be a part of self-guided learning. Because when you build a small business from the ground up, there's so many things that emerge that you have to figure out how to do. And you really need staff and employees that are able to, take something and run with it, problem solve, creative problem solving, organizing, different tracking methods and everything like that. So I just think that that is one thing I would love to see. We talk about corporate America in here, but I think we need to also have a big emphasis on small business. And if we look at Utah, I do believe Utah's small business is even greater than the national average by quite a bit. So I think that would be good as well. And something just that's kind of interesting is, a lot of people put on their resumes that they are self-starters and that they can problem solve and do these things. It's so very, very rare to actually find people who are that way. It is 9 times out of 10 that there needs to be a lot of guidance and a lot of direction and a lot of checkbacks. And so I think when we're talking about the future and preparing kids for the future, the fact that that's been over 60% of the growth since 1995, I don't see that trending in an opposite direction. So I do think we need to be very mindful of what that entails. So,
May I respond, Chair?
Yes, sure.
So we did have several small business people also participate, some who were currently, some who had been. you'll be familiar with Brad Bonham, and I don't think he will mind me quoting him in this, but when he talked about this, about entrepreneurs and about building the business model, to be able that every kid should participate in that in some form. One thing stood out, and he said, people who haven't done it can't teach it.
Yes.
And I don't know that that's always true, but I do think there's a component. He said, you've got to involve some people who have lived and breathed the development and entrepreneurship. He said, it's really one area that you have to have lived through, or you won't know all the pieces to building a business, to creating everything, HR and accounting and all the pieces. And that was just not just for the big corporations, but for all of them, was such a theme through the entire thing. And then another thing that came to mind while Superintendent Robbins was talking was we met with one of the larger industries, but in health, that you would think will be, we thought we could kind of map out from some of the innovation centers we had seen what they might want from us. And their response was different, caught me off guard. Said, we employ everything you might do. We need dietitians, we need HVAC, we need welders, we need technical people who fix our machines. We don't just need doctors and nurses to come out of your programs. We need everything. So we are all in, but we want to help in everything, not just in an operating room. And I thought that was, when we met with that conversation, it was like, okay, he's got the vision right here. So, but I think you will see, there were people who participated that had ran small businesses, and they really strongly represented some of the ways, some of the limitations to small businesses participating in something like this, but also some of the great opportunities for small businesses to participate in something like this. When we asked them, how would you partner with this? That was one of the main areas. They said, a lot of us big people can throw money, can throw employees, can give employees. Small business doesn't have time to give their employees time off to be there to work, but there's other ways. And that's something you all, like I said, will really have to dive deep in and figure out what does that look like, but absolutely important.
Yeah, and I think that when you talk to a lot of kids today, that's what's in their mindset is, I got to go into the health industry, or I got to go into the tech industry, and I'm going to be a big part of corporate America. And that's where a lot of the wealth acquisition is. But what they don't realize is, our shortage of plumbers and electricians and all these things, that actually you will be very successful being a small business owner of something like that, right? And get your little niche. So I think that is something also that should be an emphasis, as for kids to understand you can be successful in so many different ways, and that we provide all those pathways, right? Pathways to success for all types of learners and students, and for them to understand and grasp, just how successful they can be at many different things.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Edel.
So I really like this durable skills wheel. I think that's fantastic. And so I work in kind of a different field, right? So I work in government for the military, and all of this applies directly to what we need to run the government and to defend the country's national security interests. And so I really like the direction and the focus that this has brought for the importance of these skills. And so I'm looking forward as we move forward. And it was said by someone who wasn't me that I think as we move forward, it's going to be uncomfortable at times, and we're going to have to be ready for that. Because this center here is gonna shift our educational focus. And to be honest, I think that it's gonna be the model that we're eventually going to be applying to all of our schools, but we have to start somewhere, because the goal is to produce career-ready students, right? Some of them will pursue other education, some of them will go directly into careers, but no matter what, they've all got to produce at some point in life, and the skills that they can learn now will really help them. And this This wheel, though, I mean, these skills are absolutely key. And I was looking through this and wishing for so many different people to have many of these skills. And I've been lucky to have met a number of young people who do have a number of these skills. And I've been trying to think, like, how do we get more of them? How do I find these people? So I'm excited that we'll be able to take part in helping to shape and grow some of them.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Pedersen.
I appreciate the fact that the business leaders also recognize that we need to not just have it at the top level, just at the high school, just before they come out, but that it needs to be integrated all the way through our system. I think once we define what the top should be, then we will have a means of being able to work some of these qualities farther and farther down into our system. I honestly believe that a lot of these things can and are being taught in our elementary and middle schools, but we need to make it more concrete and have strategic steps so that each thing builds on something else and not just have little pockets of things here and there. But I'm so impressed with what our schools, our elementary and middle schools are doing already to try and get our kids ready for being able to participate in something that they will be coming right to the, by the time they hit high school, they're going to be ready to go with whatever we've come up with. And so I just want to compliment business for even recognizing that it can't just be the high school kids and that it needs to start a lot lower. And I think that's a goal that the board will continue to look at, especially when we're doing high quality learning and some of those things that we're planning, that we can integrate more of that. I don't really have a big question. I'm just really impressed with the quality of information you've been able to get already, because it's such a huge project. I mean, this is huge that we're trying to take on, and it's starting to formulate, and that's exciting. And so I appreciate that.
No, thank you. I think the business leaders felt the same way. Tell me, a lot of them said, wow, you guys are taking on a lot, and asking us here is so unique and so appreciated to ask us. One thing I kind of expected to hear them say, like we saw at many of the innovation centers, we're interested in this type of space. We need you to do this type of, this is what would help us. They were very much student-centered focus. They were very much on whatever you do these things, business and soft skills development in anything you do, and then you guys can figure out your pathways, and then we'll be there to help where we can and where you need. But they were very, whatever you do, here is, you need to stay focused on the collaboration and the presentation and the ability to speak. And they were very focused on, student focused, and very, very appreciative of our board and a superintendent and us inviting them to the conversation to be part of that, and so excited. So.
Okay, Mrs. Oaks, thank you, Mrs. Pedersen.
Thank you. I'm really passionate about the subject, so I'm so excited to hear what the feedback was. And Ms. Jones, thank you so much for helping us and being willing to step out of retirement for a little bit to assist us with this. It's so important. It really, really is. And it's the future of where we need to head. So I have a number of thoughts. One is with regard to some of what we've been discussing in high quality learning about report cards and what is we measure. The superintendent talked about this in our last board meeting, and we need to really get honest with ourselves about what are the most important things to us to measure. So one of the things that Tom Sherwood brought up in a meeting we had in high quality learning was the fact that if you look back on the way that our report cards used to be when some of us were growing up, it did actually measure some of the soft skills. It actually asked questions about how well you worked with other people, how much of a critical thinker you were. Well, along came No Child Left Behind, and that changed a lot of things. And all of a sudden, as an education system, we were no longer focused on the soft skills as much and focused on making sure that we were hitting certain targets and 3 central subjects. That's a whole nother discussion for another day, but we lost something along the way, I think. And between that and the introduction of cell phones, of smartphones, and other things that have really changed the way our kids are learning and our culture, I think the pendulum we're recognizing has swung up too high one direction, and we need to figure out how to pull it back. Now, with that said, like what Karen was saying, there are absolutely pockets of where this is successful. So when Kirsten was presenting earlier tonight about Draper Park Middle School and Ms. Saltmarsh's class with the Shark Tank, my youngest 11-year-old, Meryl, was in that class. And for me as a mother, it was awesome because he came home so excited. He was on fire and he would not stop talking about it. And it was all hours of the day and the weekends. And I remember one night he came home and he's like, Mom, I'm just going to prepare you. I'm going to have to meet with my group a lot. Like, I'm talking about weekends, evenings, we're going to win this. And he was so excited and he learned so much. I've never seen him so excited about his learning. And for me as a mother, that was amazing. And to have that experience at BizTown, and even though he didn't win, he came home with so much that he gained out of that experience. And so I got to see it firsthand of what's possible. I know that our schools can do this. I know that our teachers can do this. But it's going to require some hard discussions about what that looks like and what types of things that we've been comfortable with for a while are going to shift and change in what we measure. I am just thinking out loud whether or not, in order, this is a big lift, it's a big change, and it's a lot of discussion that's going to be required. Long-range planning, we talk about a lot of different things and a lot of different needs. I don't know whether or not, as that committee itself, if it has enough time and sufficient bandwidth to be able to handle the discussions that need to be had specifically about the Innovation Center. So part of me wonders whether or not we would be better off having a separate committee addressing some of these things. And granted, kind of similar to what they're talking about, cross-culturalization, there's going to be some crossover, right? There's crossover with long-range planning, there's crossover with high-quality learning, there's crossover with operating systems. But I think we need to have a group that is regularly meeting and discussing some of these things. That's just my thought. I don't know if anyone else.
I agree.
Okay, Mr. Edo?
I just wanted to say that I completely agree with your recommendation for a separate committee for this. This is so important and so big, and I think this is no longer a long-range item. It's now a now let's go item, and so I wholeheartedly support what you just said, Amanda.
Okay, so I actually had the exact same thought as Susan was presenting this, as Amanda did. So board, are we all okay with the idea of having a separate committee for the Innovation Center? And I agree. I think we need that. Because long-range planning, we have been kind of doing it, but the thing is, there's a lot of other issues with long-range planning, and just like what Andrew said, this is not a long-range thing, it's now a short-range in a few years, so.
Not just a few years, few months.
Yeah, well, it's true, but it needs to open in 2
Yes.
years. Yeah, so are there any other comments by the board? Okay, so I just want to thank you guys. I am actually thrilled by this and so excited. Like, I knew you guys were going to present something good, but this really blows me away. It really does, and I'm so excited about it. And I can just see the potential, but I also can see, I don't know where to begin. So anyway, we're gonna work on this, and I have faith in our administration. We have some of the best administrators. So
Can I close with a thank you?
Yes, please.
Thank you for Pat for participating with us, for her vision, and for helping guide this. It was unique. It was a unique experience to be part of. I think you would agree, Rick. And then for our staff that really jumped up, Kaylin, Brooke, and really helped us put the fine-tuned pieces on it.
Because we really, from the point we decided to do this to when we did it was pretty short. And I
Yeah.
think we have something for.
Yes, we do. It's right over here. So I just want to add our thanks from the board to you, Pat, for all this work. We really do appreciate it, and it is amazing what we have here to work with. So
Okay.
thank you.
Thank
you
you.
both. And oh, yes, please come back up.
I just couldn't help but think about this. I think historically, we have been looking how to remediate skills that maybe students are not as good at, instead of looking at the strengths that we have. And I see this throughout this discussion with these CEOs, is to look at where our students have strengths and strengthen them, rather than putting them in some sort of developmental math class, which a lot of parents are doing, including my daughter who spoke with me today, she goes to Quail Hollow, her daughter, $400 a month to help increase the math skills so that they can pass. And I kind of saw that differently from these CEOs, is that let's really strengthen the skills, the various skills that our students have. And I know that's what you're doing, but I just wanted to make that personal comment because it's so real for me today.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you.
Thank you.
so much. And hopefully we'll invite you back when we someday have more going on. And you can see your end product, your end work. That'll be great. Mrs. Oakes.
I'm just going to throw a little something out. The greatest gift we can give Pat is making sure that we read the whole document from all of these industry leaders. I'm actually so excited to go through it and read all of the comments. I think the more that the 7 of us are on the same page about what they are seeing and what they really need, the better decisions we're going to make as a group. And so I would highly encourage, I know it's going to take a bit of time to digest it, but I think it's so, so critical.
I forgot to
thank you.
summarize the animal photos. So at the very end of these CEOs sitting and looking at animals, her last question was, the animals are here for you to choose what Canyon should do and what Canyon shouldn't be with the animals. And the answers were both funny, but also very informative. And they're summarized in here, plus you can see them in the document online, so.
Okay, thank you. And then, I don't know, is it possible for you to send this to the board in like a PDF?
Yes,
Because this
I'm looking
has
at Kirsten,
more-
yes, we
'cause
can.
this has more information than was on your presentation.
This does, and you
And
all have a
there-
copy of this, plus we're gonna send you the link to all of the raw data.
Yeah, because there are some board members who don't like paper.
Okay.
Just reminding you. Some do, some don't. So, okay, thank you, Susan, and thank you,
You're
Pat,
welcome.
again. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is the Board of Education Committee assignment. So that document is on board docs, and I'm just going to ask for board members to text me or email me, either way. First of all, well, let me say, we're going to add an Innovation Center committee, okay? So that's going to be something that's not on there. And then also, I just want you guys to be aware that we kind of have like an ad hoc legislative committee, and in the past, it has been me and Amanda and Nancy. Obviously, I think if you're interested in legislation, you should let me know about that. And that committee, really, we only met like once. We met once and kind of like drafted the legislative priorities, but also during this session, we just kind of have a constant text stream going about like what's happening in the legislature. So if you're interested in that, let me know. I mean, Karen kind of needs to, it's kind of been who's ever on JLC, who's ever on the Joint Legislative Committee needs to be on it. Yeah, that person needs to be on it. And then if other people are interested, and also just like Susan and Charlie said in study session, like they do meet once a week and anyone is welcome to go up to that, right? Like, so I don't know, just maybe let me know about that. But okay, so this is what I'm going to ask you. First of all, send me your first and second choice for the strategic plan focus groups, okay? Because there's 4 committees for that. Those are fairly intense. So let me know that. And then I was gonna have you do 2, but I think we better do 3. Send me your top 3 and list them in rank order. What other committee assignments you would like. And, just like some committees meet more than others. So, you can be on a few committees, and we do need board members on every committee. So, and I do think, one thing I was thinking about is, I know the foundation, we've just had 1 board member, but 1 board member has a voting, but I think if other people are interested in going to the foundation meetings, you can do that. They're just very early in the morning at 7:30 a.m. And I always want to go, but I never quite make it, so anyway. So if you guys would do that in the next couple days, because I hope that by our next board meeting, we will have that list, the committee list figured out. I mean, I will work on it, because we are going to have, start having committees right away. Okay, and then Jackson and Katie, we also have Student Advisory Council. And there's a couple, so they meet once a month with, do you guys know what the Student Advisory Council is? Students from every high school, and we have a lunch, and then we ask them questions and just have a discussion with them. And we do have some openings for that. I've already asked Tom Sherwood to email you and just see what dates you guys could attend. But you probably can each just attend once, because we kind of already had the schedule filled out. And then I realized, oh, we need you guys, new board members, that have a chance to go. So that will just be another email coming. So are there any questions or comments? Yeah, Mrs. Nybar.
So with adding also the Innovation Center, we really have 14 committees, and 14 committees need 3 board members each. So that averages that, like, all of us would be on 6 each. And so I'm thinking that maybe instead of just sending to you our top 3, we maybe should send our top 5, because
That's fine.
not always does everyone do equally, right? Sometimes there's a board member that has a few more than the others, but I don't think any of us will only be on 3. So that's why I was thinking, should we send
Yeah,
like
sure,
top 5?
Sure, that's fine. There are committees that only meet like once or twice a year,
Yeah.
though, and so they're very less demanding than the ones that meet like monthly. And I do want to remind the board, well, you new board members weren't here, but we did discuss at a previous meeting that everyone kind of wanted to change around what strategic plan committees they were on. But I guess if you feel super strongly and you still want to stay on the ones you're on, that's fine. But we did kind of discuss that, and everyone kind of agreed it might be good to change stuff up. So I'm just reminding you about that conversation. Yeah, Mrs. Oaks.
I will say there are some committees that really only have like 1, sometimes 2 board
I know
members.
some of them only have 2.
Yeah, I mean, it's not always like, I think for the strategic planning ones, we wanted to make sure we had at least 3 board members on each of those. But like, for instance, sex ed committee, like, it's usually been me. I know, right? I mean, everyone's chomping at the bit to be part of that one. So, I mean, I've never seen more than 2 of us on there. And like Arts Consortium is another one. There's only 2 of us on there generally, and we only meet like quarterly, if that, sometimes twice a year. It's definitely not all of them are this like function the same. Like, whereas policy, that's a heavy lift. That's a lot of work. Yeah.
Policy is a heavy lift.
And we actually only have 2 committees that only have 2 people on it. It's the wellness and the RDA one. Everyone else has 3, because we added 3 to the Arts Consortium, because I was added. It was Nancy, myself.
But we
and
don't
you.
have to have 3. I'm just saying, we don't
Yeah.
and like, even on calendar, I know we have 3, but we don't have to have 3 board members.
Yeah, so that is something we could rethink also, but if you just have 2, that still would just mean that that would, I don't.
2 for focus groups, strategic plan, and then your others. And also, I mean, if you want to send me a text about like, hey, I don't have a lot of time, or I do have a lot of time, I'd love to be on every committee. Anyway, just let me know how your time commitment is as well. Because there's definitely, very, and there's some that are, I mean, you guys, there's a lot that are really important. So I will try to even it out though. So everyone's on at least 1 or 2 important committees. So, but they really are all important. So at different times. Okay, so that is that. And, Now we have item C, Strategic Plan Focus Group, High Quality Learning. And Dr. Amber Roderick Landward, Director of ISD, will present this to us.
I think that this is fitting that we are having this update after that great presentation by Susan Edwards and Pat Jones and all the excitement about the Innovation Center. So I think that this worked out. How are we all holding up? Happy New Year, by the way. Luke was very excited to be going to school on Monday. I cannot say that I shared his enthusiasm about returning to work. The break was really good to our family. So let's jump in since it is 8:30. Just a quick reminder, the committee members that serve on the High Quality Learning Committee right now are President Schill, Vice President Oakes, and then Board Member Mrs. Neibauer. CSD administrators include our school performance directors, our assistant superintendent, and then of course, Dr. Robbins, our superintendent. So I'm gonna just walk you through the update since my last update, which was, I believe, in October-ish. So as a quick reminder, there are 4 key impact statements in the high quality learning section of the strategic plan. This is definitely the biggest section of the strategic plan. Those 4 impact statements include 6 specific strategic initiatives as well as 16 success criteria. So our committee has a lot of work sorting through what this means in terms of how we want to move forward and start implementing. So our focus this year in our committee meetings, which we've met nearly every month since the start of the school year, was to really start narrowing our focus. And we came back to what we learned from Drew Shantz months ago, and actually they said this a lot during the strategic planning process as well. We can do anything, but we can't do everything. So when we're talking about something as big as high quality learning, we really wanted to narrow in and prioritize our work so that we could go deep and do something well and right rather than everything really fast. So we spent some time really talking about each of those areas to make sure that we were on the same page in what we thought that each section meant. We then spent some time prioritizing the areas that we wanted to focus on regarding projects, and our goal was to take action. So the way that we organized that is once we had identified the gist of each particular area, we brainstormed key projects that we thought we'd been talking about over the course of the last 18 months, both as a whole board, administration, and cabinet, and across all of the committees, so that we could then start to prioritize. So this document was also linked in board docs, and what it shows is for each of those areas, it shows all of our work. We put up on sticky notes a number of the things that we thought were the most important in this particular section. We grouped them by likeness, and then from there, we prioritized critical projects and key deliverables. And the way we talked about critical projects were kind of big rock projects, things that we know we needed to either develop, build, and organize in terms of further planning. And so each of these big critical rock projects have many details and tasks associated with them. And then the challenge was figuring out from those prioritized projects where we were going to start and focus our energy each year. So that's what I'm going to share with you right now. I'm going to just take each of those sections. I'll go through quickly until you stop me. Does that work? Okay. And you all know I can talk fast, so please don't hesitate to stop me. So with that first section, really focusing on Utah's Portrait of a Graduate, you all approved and developed the Portrait of a Canyon Scholar over a year ago. And from this particular impact statement, strategic initiatives, and success criteria, the committee really wanted to prioritize that we spend some time really fleshing out the progression of those Portrait of a Canyon Scholar competencies. So we talk about critical thinking, and we just heard some great feedback from our industry partners, but really thinking about what does that mean K through 12, and looking at those grade level bands and the specific skills related to critical thinking so that we can get a little bit more concrete about what the implementation of teaching those skills looks like. Within that conversation, we started talking about AVID because we have a number of our schools, 5 to be exact, implementing AVID, which is a college and career ready framework, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But this seemed to continue to come up as we were talking about our priorities, and so you'll see me reference that as we get to the end of this presentation. So for this particular area, we want to focus on developing the competencies, defining where and when those skills are going to be taught, what is integrated into content standards versus what is taught because we have gaps and it's not involved already in content standards, how we're going to assess and provide feedback for those skills, what that end product is going to look like. Is this going to be part of our differentiated diploma? Is it something that we track like Ms. Oakes just mentioned? Are we looking at this in terms of identifying assessments to be able to master these skills and put those on the report card? Those are all things that we want to explore and get a little bit more concrete on over the course of this year. So this is really where the committee wanted to focus this school year's work. When we look at developing standards for principle-based character traits, which are integrated into all student life and learning experiences, we really felt like this dovetailed into the work with Portrait of a Canyon Scholar, and we prioritized the critical projects being able to integrate and connect the Portrait of a Canyon Scholar, particularly with Thrive Time and how we might want to extend or have those two ideas really complement each other. And we see working with the Human-Centered Supports Committee on this particular project, but we really looked at this being something that we would start diving into in 26-27 because we'd need the Portrait of a Canyon Scholar to be developed prior to that integrated work. Moving into the competency-based learning impact statement, the critical projects that we identified for this particular area are to, one, develop or adopt a PCBL model. The state has a model that we certainly would look at as a starting point and then make the decision whether or not we adopt that, make some tweaks, and really bring that into our Canyons frameworks. Again, more conversations here around AVID, particularly as we think about defining rigor and our expectations for instruction and how we would again monitor mastery in those particular things. This is where we also would like to explore how we get more explicit about our integration model, particularly with STEM. So again, in line similar with what you heard today from industry partners, we're already talking about what this would look like K-12 and specifically getting into defining those key learning outcomes for those integration pieces and how we would integrate project-based learning. This requires that we define what proficiency and mastery levels are in our district so that we're using a common vocabulary. We'd need to develop guidelines for grading practices. Again, some of these things have already been talked about. And then, of course, extensive professional learning would need to be part of this plan. We looked at this following the work of Portrait of a Canyon Scholar, so assuming that we are able to stay on track this year with developing those competencies for Portrait of a Canyon Scholar, it makes sense to then move into fleshing out that personalized competency-based model for our district. And then finally, the last impact statement centers around educators having access to job-embedded professional learning as well as collaboration time. And the critical projects that we identified for this particular area are really honing in on the work that we've already been doing with our professional learning communities, K-12, but hyper-focusing in on assessing how things are going at the high school since they're our newest implementers in some regards and how we can support them. Developing a more concrete assessment framework that aligns with PCBL once that model is further refined, and then developing the resources and implementation tools for our professional learning communities. A lot of this is already in the works, so it's refinement. That's why you can see on the timeline there's not necessarily a specific year to focus on as you see with the other ones, because so many of these things are up and going, and we're looking at that refinement process. So those are kind of the big key rocks with regards to the critical projects and deliverables that we see ourselves focusing on over the next couple of years. The next part of my presentation, I was going to talk more about our committee's discussion about AVID, but before I do, I'll just pause to see if there are any questions. And I can slow down, I apologize.
I know, wow.
Our new board members
Amber,
are
you're
like,
going so
lady,
fast."
slow it
Yes,
down.
Katie.
I don't have a specific question for you, but just want to say thank you. And, you know, as you say, this ties right into our innovation center and looking at being flexible and changing with the times of what education needs to be. And so this is right on track, and I think it's awesome, the work that you're doing with this. So thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments, board? Okay, I think we'll have more comments later.
And
Yeah,
board members who are on the committee, did you want to? Okay.
Yeah, Amanda?
This is a highly conceptual area, right? I mean, like, and Amber's done a great job trying to harness all of the wild horses in the room. I think there, I have to say, I really admire and respect it. I don't think it's easy. And the exercise that we did with the Post-its, you did a great job trying to like solidify that. I think we learned a lot from doing the strategic plan as a group. Like, and I see bits and pieces of that being incorporated in these different committees again. And yeah, I mean, I'm excited for the direction where this is going. And in some ways, I feel like this was a good preparation for me participating on this committee for what we heard from Pat today. It really helped me to kind of be like, okay, yes, this is where we need to head, because we've already been crystallizing some of those principles as a group, right? So
Great, thank you.
Great, go ahead, Amber, sorry.
No, that's
Go ahead.
okay. So one of the things that we've really talked about in the last 2-3 meetings is AVID. As I mentioned, when we were doing our brainstorming of the critical areas of the high quality learning section of the strategic plan, AVID was referenced by a number of us because of our experience with the implementation in Jordan, Eastmont, Mount Jordan, Sandy, and Glacier Hills. We all had bits and pieces of information where we just kept going back to it in terms of the culture, the student agency, the teacher efficacy, and some of the components with rigor that we've seen through that implementation process of those schools. And so that led us as a committee on a little bit deeper dive of making sure they all had a common understanding of what AVID is. And through that conversation, we really felt like we wanted to bring a bigger picture and an idea to the full board to consider exploring AVID for a district-wide implementation. So what AVID is really a college and career readiness framework, different than a portrait of a Canyon scholar that gets into the specific skills and competencies that we would be measuring across time with our students. The framework really allows us to build some coherence with all of our other frameworks, including the strategic plan, by really harnessing our attention around how we connect instruction, systems, leadership, and the culture to be able to support students to be college and career ready. One of the things that AVID does that I think our current frameworks have not been explicit enough about is really honing in on the relational capacity that occurs when all students are held to high expectations and being given opportunities to be challenged at a rigorous academic level, regardless of what skills they come to us. I can't remember if it was Susan or Pat Jones that mentioned how the industry talked about really focusing on assets and looking at those as being the biggest contributions to student success, particularly in an education setting. AVID is built around that as a culture. It becomes really focusing as a school culture, you're focusing on how to remove the barriers that students face when confronted with challenging and rigorous coursework so that we can help them succeed rather than move them to a different path where they're not being challenged as much. So one of the reasons we thought that this was important to bring to the whole board for us to further explore was, again, timing. With the Innovation Center coming online, it's a perfect opportunity for us to consider what does the entire K-12 model look like. And we really felt like as a committee, AVID is being an evidence-based student-centered framework. It directly aligns with not just the high quality learning portion of the strategic plan, but really there's overlap into all 4 key areas. Particularly, we were impressed with that emphasis on that culture of high expectations. As I mentioned, it creates coherence with our current framework being the MTSS framework, Portrait of a Canyon Scholar. We've just spent some time really digging into our high quality learning principles as a district leadership to better serve our students in acquiring language and advancing their language. And again, this would be for all students. And then of course, the PCBL model that we're looking at as well. We really like AVID's emphasis on academic rigor and inquiry. And so when we're talking about being able to critically think, be curious, and communicate your ideas, that's a big part of inquiry, and it requires, again, rigorous expectations. We also really liked the idea of AVID because we feel like it increases the durability of our district tenants. So some of our district tenants are centered around student achievement, customer service, innovation, community engagement. Those tenets become present in AVID when we're talking about having a common language across all of our stakeholders and all of our schools for how we're supporting our students with rigorous academic standards. And because it's an outside kind of framework that we can all get behind, it's going to outlast all of us in terms of its durability. It's not, you know, this particular board configuration's idea. It's not Dr. Robbins. It's not EB or ISD. It's not district leadership. It's all of us committing to something and being able to create some predictability for our schools and students regardless of who's leading, which I think creates some safety and longevity with our staff as well. And one of the things that is also fantastic about AVID is there's some built-in implementation monitoring structures that I think also gets back to that point of what was mentioned earlier. How are we looking at our district report card in terms of our success with other monitoring indicators besides just student achievement? We'd have some of those options as well. And then, of course, there'd be some external supports in terms of community and consultants through AVID that we would have continuous access to for an outside perspective that's not necessarily embedded in our system and could be objective, ongoing with where we might need to continue to improve. So that was sorry that I'm just like verbal vomit, 9 o'clock,
Hey,
here's everything.
It's a lot.
Please
Just-
save me, save me.
I just want to, like, for me, because I'm not even in her realm of thinking around this, but when you think about competency-based learning, right? And there's a million different models out there. It's one size does not fit all. Different districts across the country have really tried to figure out what does this look like. And to Amber's point, I think it's really important. One thing that is appealing about AVID is that it does give us a sandbox that is sustainable, that all the parts have a place that really makes sense. It does build common language. It to me, when we first started talking about it, I never really thought of AVID as the vehicle to get us where we want to go. When you think about, you know, PCBL, I mean, that is such a huge step and undertaking. And where do you start? You know, what exactly does that look like? And I've done this before, and even in a much smaller, you know, lab setting, it's super complicated and complex. And so AVID brings a lot of safety that way. It brings a common vision and a common language to put the pieces together. And so I think when we're thinking about, well, why would we even consider this? You know, as I kind of unpacked AVID and looked at and actually seeing this, you know, in our schools, it really does provide us that vehicle or that place to actually start to operationalize the strategic vision that we already have. So
Yeah.
anyway, I don't know if that helps.
That was very well said. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So with that in mind, as we explored this, we even as a committee went and visited 3 of our 5 implementing sites, and that's really one of the benefits of considering it district-wide. We've already had 5 schools implementing, several of them for an extended amount of time. So we already have kind of an in-district pilot to know what it looks like, how effective it can be, where we can really learn, especially given, you know, Eastmont is now a national demonstration site. Who better to learn from in terms of making that model move to scale than a school like Eastmont in terms of that demonstration site. So one of the things that, not one of the things, many of the things that I just want to put out on the table for consideration if we want to further this idea of AVID district-wide is that it does take time. So thinking about something like this is going to require us to commit and focus at multiple levels. That one of the things that we talked to the implementing principals about when we said, hey, what do you think if this would go district-wide? What advice do you have? What comes to mind? They said, would you be willing to commit to this to let us do it right instead of distracting us with other initiatives along the way so that we can't truly take the time to properly align our systems and implement at the level that they would need to be for us to be successful district-wide. And I thought that that was really good advice and something for us to take to heart as we consider this option district-wide. Some of the things that we talked through just very initially and with some of the implementing principles were some of the realignment of the current systems that we'd want to consider for a district-wide implementation. Really putting that emphasis, not just on college and career readiness, but on taking the time to build the skills to be able to shift the culture in a building around learning and around teaching in this manner, is going to require that we all have a little bit of shifting in our roles and responsibilities, meaning across our district departments, how we recruit and provide professional learning to our leaders, to our teams, to our teachers, and even to our students. It would impact our decision-making processes because we'd be running everything through this framework. I already mentioned professional learning, even how we think about our school improvement, given some of those critical features of implementation and those monitoring tools that AVID has. I would see those being moved into that process. When we think about how we're operating in terms of a number of resource allocation and different components, we'd want to take those things into consideration. I think I already mentioned hiring, but particularly even how we bring in new initiatives. How does it fit within that coherence of our models so that, again, we're not distracting our buildings and really giving them the time to skill up and be successful with implementation. We also would want to consider the additional costs that may be associated with an implementation at this level. Certainly there can be some reallocation of current resources, but I think that it's a given that there would also be some additional costs as well. So I'm hesitant to give you a big number right now, and I'll bring that up in just a minute, but just to give you an idea of what some of those additional resources could be. AVID does charge an annual membership fee per school. That's roughly about $3,500. Like I said, that is annual, so that would be $3,500 times our 42 schools. It does go up a little bit, but then there's also some discounts for the more schools you have. So those pieces would be things that we'd be working out if we move in that direction. For each school with a startup, there is a resource instructional package that is just a one-time fee. For all of our schools, the total cost would be $100,000, so that's not per school, but that would be in that first year. And then professional learning, of course, is the biggest cost. Right now, our schools travel for AVID training to different states. Each year, a group of teachers goes and they get kind of certified or trained every handful of years. Obviously, it would not be cost effective for us to send every single educator out of state, so we'd be looking at bringing that here, but that's still, again, a cost, and how we organize that would be dependent upon how much that would cost. There was some strong feelings from the principals that going to an AVID institute still be an option somewhere in our model, and so we could certainly look at that. There could be some additional costs for elective FTE at the secondary level. Both our middle and high schools have an AVID elective course, so the extent to which we offer that across all of our secondary schools and how many sections those classes really require a smaller number of students for them to be successful, because this is where you're really honing in on actually many of those durable skills in a safe setting. We talk about creating a safe environment for students to be able to try things and fail. That's exactly what happens in an AVID elective class. And so we'd want to be cognizant of what that looks like across all of our secondary schools and the FTE that it might require. And then, of course, implementation support. So certainly all of our departments would have a piece to play, or a part to play rather, in supporting implementation. Part of that is in a redesign of roles and responsibilities, but it could also mean some additional supports for both principals and teachers at school and district level. So what we would actually propose, because that's a lot to think through, is that we take the time to work with an AVID consultant. So we have folks that we've been working with for years, just with our 5 schools. They could help us think through that bigger picture of a comprehensive district-wide implementation. And with these consultants, and then with a smaller group of administrators and the High Quality Learning Committee, We'd be looking at how we're going to define that coherence across our existing frameworks. We'd clarify the specific implementation features and what those expectations would be, and what the scale of our model would look like, meaning does everybody jump in at the get-go? Do we have kind of a staggered start? Those kinds of things we'd want to work out. Specifying what the implementation tasks and milestones across the next couple of years would look like, including professional learning, and then start thinking about timelines. For our schools, just when a single school is implementing, they take over a year of study to just build this within one school. And so for a district, we'd want to make sure that we take that time as well. And again, focusing on the going slow to go fast so that we can do it right, I think would be key here. So what we're proposing is that we take the time to work with this consultant, build that plan, and then we will have a lot of details to bring back for an official proposal for you all. And at that point, we can decide, like Dr. Robbins said, yes, this still fits the bill and we want to move forward, or we've analyzed it and it was helpful to look at the coherence of our frameworks, but maybe this isn't the right time, or maybe we decide not to. But at any rate, I think it's worth the deep study in terms of building a plan so that we actually know what we're agreeing to. or not, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I think Mrs. Oakes has a comment and I have a comment.
Thank you. That's a lot to get through. I was very impressed by the Avid classrooms we visited that day. It was awesome. And I do have a question though, especially in light of what we just discussed previous to your presentation. How much latitude do we as a district have in adapting certain things in Avid? For instance, what's that?
I said, say more. Tell me a little bit more. What you're
Okay, so I'm just thinking, some of the conversations we had about cross-culturalization of subjects and making sure that the kids are learning certain soft skills. What if we feel like something in Avid is like, as a base, it's great, but we feel like we need to adapt certain things? How much, do we have a lot of latitude in being able to do that as a district?
Yes, so Avid isn't really about the content. That is us. They're about the how, the delivery, the systems governance and culture within a building in a district to make sure that that sustains so that the results can be realized at their most, at the maximized potential, right? So it's that bigger picture, they don't get into the nitty gritty content level skills. There's certainly, they have a lot of resources, particularly around their instructional foci, which is WICR, which stands for Writing, Inquiry, Collaboration, Organization, and Reading. But those are still all integrated into every content. So we still have a lot of latitude with those pieces.
That's good to know. I mean, so it sounds like it's kind of the methodologies of how the content is delivered.
It's really aligned, yeah, with implementation science and what we know about durable cultures for school improvement.
Right. I will say one of the things I liked for sure, what we observed that day, and that does align with some of what we've heard from industry partners, is the need to create students that have excellent communication skills, both writing and oral presentation. Like with the high school class, one of the ones that we went into where the kids are having to constantly ask each other questions and bump around the classroom and get to know each other differently and see how well they understand the content or help one another. Those kind of interactions immediately start to increase their ability to communicate with other people. And you could kind of see it happening lifetime. So I personally am very excited about this. I feel like in terms of implementation and what that looks like for all student capacities, like I would love to better understand that. Like I feel like I needed to ask more questions that day about how this impacts special ed students or high achieving students, or, some of the things I'll like, are they separated out? Are the high achieving students given extra like challenge to be able to help them learn at their level? Like I'm curious about how that works from an Avid lens.
Are you asking that now, or you want to find out?
Well, or you can provide more information at a later time about that.
Yeah, and I think that those would be great things to embed into this comprehensive plan and a proposal so that we can make sure that we address all of those questions.
Okay, Mrs. Pedersen.
I love how you've clarified and made simple the information, because I know everybody has their own version of what is AVID and what's going on. This has been an awesome proposal. My question is, and I know it's going to be coming down the road, but you said define coherence with existing frameworks. Is there a possibility when you're looking at these existing frameworks that we remove some?
I think,
Because
I
seriously,
think that's the question.
we have to. If this is, sorry, but if this is what we're going to hang our curriculum on, then we need to take some other parts apart.
Yeah.
Because I really think that this is going to lead us more the direction that we're heading for the future. And yes, it's going to take time. Yes, it's going to take money. But we could re-allot a lot of the things that we're doing and and help this fit better. I think we can find money by dropping some things. I think one thing that education's never been very good at, and educators always say, but what are you going to take away? What are you going to take off my plate? I think that they will be thrilled with knowing these skills. Everyone I know at the schools that are implementing that have gone to these trainings, and they broke their faculties into groups that went over, that the school sent them and then they came back. So they had like 3 different groups in the elementary that had to go. And they have loved it. They said it was the best, time ever spent. And it's really pulled their faculties
great.
together, and the communication amongst faculty has improved. So they're modeling for the students within the faculties exactly what they want the students to be able to do. And that's one of the successful things about this whole system. But I'm thinking, not only are we going to just look at coherence, but how about elimination? Can you put that word in there?
I think we have to, particularly because there is so much overlap,
Well, I think there is, and I think, as you said, there's so much flexibility that if we could put it in a different format, maybe we can drop some things, because we just vary everybody. And that's why they said, don't you dare do another initiative if you're going to do this one. Because
that's exactly
it's, and I realize half the time it's not us, it's the state. But if we can prove, even to the state, that what we are doing is making a difference for the future and even for our future college students, they're really looking closely at college curriculum. If what we can do helps support what they're going to be developing and doing, we're not going to replace them. We don't want to replace them. We want to be partners with them.
Right.
Okay, that's the whole idea. And we realize that what we're able to provide will help the students that may or may not choose to go on to college. But even if they do go on to college, they can support themselves. They don't have to take out those loans. They might be able to fund themselves right through college. So I'm just saying that I'd like to see a serious look into not only how can we use it with what we're doing, but what can we also take away
Right.
to make it streamlined and efficient and everyone knows where we're going. I think this is kind of like when the Innovation Center became available. I think having AVID is the cart that we're going to put all our apples in that may be more efficient and save us time and money in the long run.
Yeah. It could.
So that's just my point of view. Thank you for what you've been doing. This is phenomenal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Mrs. Nymer.
Okay, first off, thank you so much. This has been, you can't even describe the process of everything we've gone through, but very exciting to go and visit those AVID schools. I do think that what we saw in the classroom was a lot of those durable skills in that wheel, which was so cool. Teachers were the facilitators. The kids were so engaged. The circle time in that young classroom, what was it, first grade?
There was
Kindergarten. It was incredible. It was totally incredible.
I
So
cried.
yes,
So
me too. It's
Cried
very
multiple
exciting. Yeah, very exciting, very amazing
Did you
stuff.
say multiple times? I know. I know. I did. I couldn't help it.
Yeah, I teared up. I did. It's very exciting because I think, as you study education for a while and then you go and see something like that, or you've been a part, right? We've all been a part, whether we taught or were students, and then to see really awesome teaching in action like that was more self-guided, was so incredible. So I'm super excited about this. The one thing that I would add is, I know one of the things you've talked about is, and Karen just talked about it too, is that we need to, kind of focus in. It's almost like we got the scope on the gun and we've got to narrow it in as far as we can't do everything. That quote, like, we can do anything, but we can't do everything, is so true. I do want us to be cognizant of the fact of protecting successful pathways for every type of learner. And Amanda spoke to this too, but this AVID program is going to be fantastic, but it doesn't necessarily supplant special education.
Right.
It doesn't supplant advanced learning education either. Actually, Christmas time, I can't remember the 22nd or the 21st, for whatever reason, my phone was just ringing off the hook with parents, different issues. And one of the parents was a parent of a student who, she was concerned because she said, we don't have an honors course selection in our middle school anymore. And I was talking to our principal, and the principal said, that's kind of the whole direction Canyons is going. And I thought, okay, I guess that's how it is at every middle school. And she's like, and then I found out at Albion, it's still on the course selection. And anyway, we had a conversation, and she was sending me follow-up emails with some other parents. And I do think there is a concern amongst parents of, wait, are things going to be taken away from us? Are we going to be able to have some of those pathways protected that we want for our kids? And we've talked a lot about that, but the importance of making sure we deliver, the supply and the demand, that we're doing a good job in public ed of supplying the demand so that they aren't going to look elsewhere. And so anyway, I just wanted us to, follow up with some of those questions Amanda talked about as we go about this and look into this. So
Great.
Okay, so I just want to add that I was super impressed when we went to visit those schools, and just like kind of Holly and Amanda have said, like, even the presentation tonight, I think this is a way that we can have the students learn those skills they need, just because every single classroom we went to, the kids were not just working on their own. They were actually talking to each other. And even that kindergarten class, they were having to talk. And I think that's just a really important thing, a really important skill, obviously, that our business leaders say our kids need. So I'm really excited about this. And I'm looking forward to the presentation. And I was just wondering, I don't know if our other board members would want to go visit schools, because I just think, because we talked about it in concept, but then to actually see it in action is like a whole nother thing. So maybe, I don't know if we want to set that up. Would you guys want to go visit the AVID schools? So we went to an elementary, middle, and high school.
Just
So
for me, because I'm not on your committee and I wasn't included.
okay. No, I think maybe,
But we could do a second round.
yeah, why don't we do a second round? Yeah,
Sure.
because I think that's
Yeah.
really
Would you like me to
important.
coordinate that?
Yeah, would
that
that be
yep.
okay? Because I think it's really important to see it in action, because that's really, I think, what we were excited about it before, but then to see it in action is just a whole nother level. So I think that would be important for the boards to see.
We can definitely.
And I like the idea of studying it and bringing back, just like the details of it. And the other thing that I see with this is, because we have our strategic plan and we have all these things we're trying to work on, but AVID is a way to implement our plan, and also a way to implement Portrait of a Graduate,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
Because and I also think this will feed into the innovation
You get
center.
down here and do this presentation. Yes, that's
No.
exactly it.
No, I'm just speaking a little slower than you did.
Which I think everybody appreciates.
Anyway, it's just exciting, and I look forward to this. So thank you. Thanks for all your work.
Well,
and-
thank you. We'll proceed then, and I'll continue to bring this back to the High Quality Learning Committee, and then we'll update the board on our progress. But I put up there that we'd have a full proposal by the fall of 2025, just to give us some leeway. Hopefully it could be a little bit sooner, but again, at the very latest this fall, and then we can make the decision about how we want to proceed.
That sounds great.
Are there
Okay.
any other questions about any other parts of our committee
Anything
that
else?
we can address?
Okay, thank you
All right.
so much.
Thank you all.
Okay, we have now come to staff comments. Superintendent.
I've said enough tonight.
You never say that much, but anyway, it's okay. It's appreciated. It's appreciated. Okay, Mr. Wilcox.
I haven't said enough tonight, so I'm. Just a couple things. First of all, we talked about committees. I don't want to break anybody's heart, but all 7 of you cannot be on the audit committee, okay? Only Amber's only Amber's 3 favorites can be on.
I'm fighting anyone who wants to be on.
I just want to give a quick shout out, today. Well, first of all, I hope everybody had a great holiday break and got away, spent some time with family and friends. Just want to give a quick shout out to, everybody at Mount Jordan and Jordan High today. Fortunately, we had an incident where an accident down by Mountain America. The Expo Center, power was off in this building, transportation, Jordan and Mount Jordan both on and off. We had to excuse schools there early. Appreciate our bus drivers getting over there to get the kids home. Appreciate our lunch workers getting them fed. Appreciate our teachers supporting our kids because we had to, they didn't have lights or power to do Chromebooks and other things like that. So really a team effort to support that. I appreciate our at Jordan, those of us in this building saw the power come on and off several times. And it did that at Jordan High. And when it did that enough times, it broke a breaker there. So I appreciate our plumbers and electricians over there fixing that tonight to get the heat back on mainly for tomorrow. So we should be good to go. But again, these unfortunate things happen, but I do appreciate everybody's efforts with that today. That's all I have. Thank you.
So the whole story here is that the power was going on and off, right? So, and it was off for an extended time, but in classic Leon fashion, we're sitting in my office, we're watching the buses over at Mount Jordan roll out, kids are leaving, and just as the last bus pulls out, on comes the power. And Leon says, "Kids, you're welcome." But I'm not telling my boys.
Okay, thank you. We will start with Mrs. Nybar tonight for board comments.
Well, first off, just a warm welcome to our newest board members. We're grateful to have you. And I really like our legislative priorities that were set at our desks tonight. I think those are awesome. And I love the format we use with that. I am excited for the direction that we're headed, and it's time to roll up our sleeves and go to work. That's all I'm going to say. And I hope that all of our faculty and staff enjoyed their Christmas holiday break. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Jackson.
Thank you.
Mr. Lewis, oh my gosh, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. It's first.
Mr.
First
Jackson
day,
Lewis.
first day. We're all getting used to it. It's all right. I just want to say thank you to the incredible staff here. As I've been transitioning into this office, it's a new experience, right? And truly an incredible team here that I've just been incredibly grateful for, and it's an incredible team to work with. So thank you for that. I'm super excited to be on this team. Yeah, just like Holly said, let's just roll up our sleeves and get to work. So I'm excited for that. That's all I have for now.
Thank you. Mr. Edel.
So first, I want to say thank you to all the schools that had holiday performances before we went to winter break. It was really fun to see the different performances at several of the different schools. And I'm consistently amazed at what elementary teachers can do with elementary students to make music. It's pretty cool. Yeah, and then I want to say, as I've done before, but welcome to our new board members, and I'm really excited to have Holly back for another 4 years on the board. I truly believe that we have an A-team board here. We have such a great team, and I know that it's going to be a really good couple years, and we're here to work for all of you. I mean, that's our focus is how do we help the students and all the different pieces that go into that. So I'm really excited for the future. So if you look at each board being with a 2-year cycle, kind of like we have with Congress, this is the 9th Board of Education for Canyon School District. And so it's pretty new, but pretty exciting. And so I'm really looking forward to the work we're going to do. And like Holly just said, it's time to roll up our sleeves and get to work.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Oaks.
I also want to extend a welcome. I'm so excited to the new board members, and congratulations to Holly for her second term. And I love working with all of the members of the board. We really do have a very functional group and get a lot of good things done. I'm thrilled to be here again. I just want to quickly announce I am going to be having a town hall meeting on January 14th, so a week from today at 7 p.m. in Indian Hills in the Warrior Room. So if any constituents have questions or concerns, feel free to come and share them with me. I will try and address them as best I can. And what I don't know, I will get researched and get back to you. So anyway, it's important for us to be accessible to the public, and just trying to do that for you.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Dolly.
Thank you. I'm excited for this new adventure and to work with this team and to work with all our administrators in the district. And the Canyons has such a great vision and the direction it's going, being innovative for the future. And so it's exciting times to be involved here and be part of the team, getting to work. I want to thank a lot of the administrators that have helped Jackson and myself just get oriented and on board and start to get our feet wet a little bit. There's still a lot we don't know. And so we appreciate the help along the way as we're getting to understand our roles a little bit better. I enjoyed attending Park Lane's production of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory just before the Christmas break. And they did a fantastic job. I'm so grateful for the teachers that put the time into these extra programs and opportunities for the kids, because these are the things they really remember from their time at school. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Pedersen.
Well, everyone said welcome, welcome, welcome. So I'm going to say welcome to the team. This is a great board to be on. And one thing you're going to find being board members is that you will be so impressed at the quality that we have in this district, from district leadership all the way through all the levels down to the schools. There are amazing people who work for Canyons District, and I am so proud to be able to work with them and to represent them. Our families are amazing. I wanted to compliment our communities. There were so many schools that did fundraisers, can drives, toy drives, the teen centers. They were filling in food for the teen centers. They were sub for Santas for students in their own schools. The love that our community has for the members of their own school, for the students that we have, is unparalleled. Our students and our groups go above and beyond what I think most schools do to be able to take care of every student. We really do care about every student and all of their needs, whatever it might be. And it's not just student needs, it's the family behind them. You will be impressed when you get to see how many things we're doing to support families that are in crisis. I think a lot of our community doesn't understand that we don't just worry about what's going on in our schools, but also what's going on with our families. And we want to make it so that our students are successful and healthy and happy and safe. And that they're here and that they're going to be, want to be here and that they're going to feel loved and supported. And I think we do such a great job as a district doing that. So welcome to the board. You're gonna love the ride. It's kind of like you're going up the roller coaster, and maybe today's like the pinnacle, and then it's gonna rush right out, rush right after that. But everyone loves the roller coaster, right? So I'm excited to be working with all of you again, and I hope everyone did have a great Christmas, but I wanted to compliment our community and our schools for what they do for one another. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I just want to add my congratulations, and I'm really excited to work with Jackson and Katie, and also glad that Holly is back. In December, I was talking to a school board member, and she told me, she's like, I really think you guys have the best board in the state. And I was like, really? I'm like, good, thank you. You know what I mean? It's pretty rare for someone to say that. And I was like, I agree. I agree. And you guys, you new board members are going to be just as amazing as our old ones. So I know you guys are going to do a great job. And I just love how our board, I really do feel like we focus on doing what's best for our students and our families and also our employees. And that's just a big unifying factor. And I'm just excited to get to work like everyone was saying. And we're going to have a lot of exciting things that we get to do in the next 2 years. So thank you so much. Thank you for running, you guys. It's a big thing. It's a big sacrifice. And it's an exciting ride, as has been said. So, and that's it. And we will all see you this weekend at the conference. So thank you. I'll call this meeting to a close.